So the 9 commandments we say are true are all things that God said not to do. But the one commandment that says rest is the one most say is through. Don't miss that it's a gift, something God gave for our benefit, a whole 24-hour period set aside to rest and reverence Him. It's the 4th commandment, that Saturday Sabbath, where God Himself rested. He sanctified it. He set it apart. On that 7th day, He blessed it. And some may say, who cares about the day? But explain why God to a wife, if not that wedding vow. So that's what God did, like a man on one knee when Moses brought them down. It's an agreement, a testament, a covenant of commitment. That's why God called religious people whores when they professed it but didn't live it. Because what use is it to a man if his wife says she loves him, but she messes around with another guy behind the back of her husband?
You were made to rule. You were made to conquer. I am made for you. I am made to honor. I'll obey your every command. I'll sway to every demand. You were made to rule. You were made to conquer. I am made for you, rule over me. Rule over me. Rule over me, my Lord. You rule over me. Rule over me, my Lord. You were made to govern. You were made to dominate. You are my influence. You are super and you're great. I'll obey your every decree. Loving you is to agree. You are made to rule. You are made to conquer. I am made for you.
my brethren, be strong in the Most High, and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of Yah, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of the Most High, that ye may be able to stand and withstand in the evil day. And having done all to stand, stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, take the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of the Most High Yah.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 1.
Shalom to the set-apart family of the Most High Yah. We welcome you all to another Sword of the Spirit audio broadcast teaching. And as your humble servants for today's teaching, we greet you once again in the name of our Abba Yah, Yeshua HaMashiach, on this beautiful set-apart Sabbath. All life comes from you, O Yah. You are He who has made the heavens and the heaven of the heavens and all their hosts, the earth and all which is in it, the seas and all that is in them, and you preserve all of them alive, and the hosts of heavens bow down to you. You are Yah, the Almighty One who chose Abram and brought him forth out of Ur of the Chaldees and appointed his name Abraham. You found his heart faithful before you, and cut with him the covenant to give the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, and the Jebusites, and the Girgashites, to give it to his seed. And you have performed your words, for you are righteous. And you saw the affliction of our fathers in Egypt, and heard their cry by the Red Sea. And you gave signs and wonders on Pharaoh, and on all his servants, and on all the people of the land, for you knew that they were seething against them. And you made a name for yourself as it is on this day. And you divided the sea before them, so that they went through the midst of the sea on the dry land. And their pursuers you threw into the depths, like a stone into the mighty waters. You led them in the day by a pillar cloud, and in the night by the pillar of fire, to give them light in the way in which they should go. And you came down on Mount Sinai and spoke with them from the heavens, and gave them the true Torah with right judgments and good statutes and commandments. And you made your set-apart Sabbath known to them, and you commanded commandments, statutes, and laws to them by the hand of your servant Moses. And you gave them bread from the heavens for their hunger, and brought forth water from out of the rock for their thirst. And you said to them that they should go in to possess the land which you raised your hand to give them. And they and our fathers were insolent, and hardened their necks, and did not listen to your commandments. And they refused to hear, and did not remember your wonders which you did among them. But they hardened their necks, and in their rebellion appointed a leader to return them to their bondage. But you are Almighty Yah, always ready to pardon, gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and of great kindness. You did not forsake them. Yea, when they made a casted calf for themselves, and said, This be the God which brought us up out of Egypt, and had worked great blasphemies, yet you, in your great mercies did not forsake them in the wilderness. The pillar of cloud did not depart from them by day to lead them in the way, nor the pillar of fire by night to show them light and the way in which they should go. You also gave your good spirit to teach them, and did not withhold your manna from their mouth, and gave them water for their thirst. And 40 years you sustained them in the wilderness. They lacked nothing. Their clothes did not wear out. Their feet did not swell. And you gave them kingdoms and peoples, and divided them into the corners. And they possessed the land of Shihon, and the land of the king of Heshbon, and the land of Og, king of Bashan. You also multiplied their sons like the stars of the heavens, and brought them into the land which you had promised to their fathers, that they should go in and possess it. And the sons went in and possessed the lands, and you humbled the people of the land before them, the Canaanites. And you gave them into their hands with their kings and the people of the land to do with them as they desired. And they seized strong cities and a rich land, and occupied houses full of all good, wells already dug, vineyards and olive yards, and fruit trees in abundance. And they ate and were filled and became fat and lived luxuriously in your great goodness. But they were disobedient and rebelled against you, and casted your Torah behind their backs. And they killed your prophets who testified against them, to turn them to you, and they worked great blasphemies. And you gave them into the hand of their enemies who distressed them. And in the time of their distress, they cried out to you, and you heard from heaven, and according to your abundant mercies, you gave them deliverers who saved them out of the hand of their enemies. But after a rest to them for a short while, once again they turned to do evil before you, and you left them in the hand of their enemies, and they ruled over them. But they came back and cried to you again, and you heard them from heaven. And once again you saved them according to your mercies. And you testified against them to bring them again to your Torah. But they acted proudly and did not listen to your commandments, but were against your judgments. They sinned in them, which if a man does, he shall live in them. And they gave a rebellious shoulder and hardened their necks and would not hear. But for many years you had patience with them and testified against them by your ruach, by your prophets, yet they would not give ear. You gave them into the hands of the peoples of the lands. But for your great mercies you did not consume nor forsake them, for you are a gracious and merciful Elohim. You are great, mighty, and to be feared, who keeps covenant and mercies. Please, Abba Yah, let it not seem little before you, all the trouble that we have caused, our kings, our rulers, our priests, our prophets, our fathers, all the people since the days of the kings of Assyria. You are just as to all that came on us. You have done right, and we have done evilly. This is Nehemiah chapter 9 that I'm reading. It blessed me this morning, and I felt led to read this. It truly touched my heart. Again, that is Nehemiah 9, because it goes into great detail from beginning to end, all the wonderful works that our Father Yah has done, all that he has done for us, how he has blessed us, and all he has asked that we walk upright, that we walk in his Torah, that we keep his testimonies, and that we seek him with our whole heart, that we prepare our way to walk in his ways as he has commanded us, to keep his laws, to keep his statutes, to keep his commandments and his judgments. His word is already settled and, forever in heaven. There is nothing else that we can do. Once you have learned this truth, there is nothing else to turn back to. He says that his word is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. It gives instruction, he says, to the simple. He says, but salvation is far from the wicked, for they do not seek his statutes. He says salvation is far from the wicked, for they do not seek his statutes. This is Psalms 119, verse 155. Salvation is far from the wicked, because they do not seek his statutes. But he says, great peace are to those who love his Torah. He says, for there is no stumbling block to them. And so I'm going to bring in my co-teacher, my sister. We greet you in the name of our master, Yeshua HaMashiach. Welcome to today's 163rd audio broadcast teaching. Shabbat Shalom, sis. How are you?
Shabbat Shalom, sis. Wonderful reading. I just love the worship song that you played.
Yes, rule over me, yes.
Yes, the video clip that you also played. Just beautiful. Just welcoming, just in the presence of Yah. So, praise be to Yah. And I'm just so glad to be here on his set apart day that he considered me with his breath of life. So,
yes.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing good today. Like you said, glad to be here. There are many people who wish they had the opportunity to do what we're doing today. They weren't granted that opportunity, and so all praises be to Yah for opening my eyes, and just allowing me to once again come before his people. Welcome back. It's been a minute since we have had a teaching. I think it's been like 3-4 weeks maybe. We were getting prepared for our webinar conference that we had last Sabbath. It was an absolute blessing. For those of you who did not get an opportunity to attend the webinar conference, because it didn't matter where you were, as long as you had a laptop, computer, and internet, you were able to see the entire conference presentation, and we had an opportunity to interact with some of the people who attended. Many others who wanted to attend could not attend for whatever reason. The link was not working for them, so some of them actually listened via the phone. I didn't know that, but were able to still view the presentation. So we send out a sincere apology to all those who were who weren't able to link in to the conference, but we want to send a special shout out and thank you to our dear sister Monica, who hung with us all the way. It was 4 hours long. Who hung in with us, Sister Monica, the Stigler family, and their guests, Garland, and the others that were there. Who also attended the conference, Sister Ebony and Sister Autumn, those the ones offhand that I know for a fact were able to get in, and then those who listened via the phone. Anyone who wasn't or who did not get the opportunity, we apologize. And but the webinar conference is on our channel, the Daughter Yah channel, and so you can go and view that at your own leisure. It was absolute blessing to everyone who listened. I had people reach out to me afterwards and saying how it blessed them and how they had never heard salvation broken down that way. And so all praises be to Yah, because it is his doing, and we're just doing the work of the ministry. And so hopefully there's more to come with our webinar conference. I know a few people, they really enjoyed the opportunity because most of the time you listen to the teachings, but you're not able to see the PowerPoint. And so it was gave it a different spin, you know, for those who were able to follow along. And they were telling us, hey, look, hopefully you'll be having more. And so we are looking forward to it, and we will keep you updated as we will be doing more webinar conferences, because we want to make sure, just as we do with our physical conferences here that we have in Michigan, that we're also reaching out to those of you who may listen and you are, you know, aren't able. We don't want to leave you out as well. So how was the conference for you, Prina?
It was a different experience, but I really enjoyed it because you were able to see they could see the PowerPoint presentation, and they were also able to interact face to face versus over the phone. You know, so I really enjoyed it. I love the webinar, actually. The only hiccup is, like you said, was the link, and we worked it out, we practiced it, and and so we were hoping that nothing occurred, but of course, it did. And so, like Sister Shatan said, it's on YouTube, and we just hope that you still take a listen to it, because again, the salvation portion was very truly a blessing. It truly blessed me, especially just coming from, when you come out of Christianity, you really don't know what to expect as far as, when you change in your walk, you learn things, you learn things differently. And just so to see salvation from a Yahweh eyes and how he really, truly gave that to you was truly a blessing, because, when you coming out of Christianity, they teach you, once saved, always saved. They have all these little catchy cliches. And so this was a wonderful teaching directly inspired by Yah, to lead you in the road of salvation and how the whole salvation process from beginning to end is established. So I truly enjoyed it, and I just pray that the listeners will check that out, and then also idolatry, as well as the law, statutes, and commandments, just a whole breakdown of that. So it was wonderful, just wonderful.
Yeah. So just us from us coming back, I was just led just for if we may have picked up some new listeners, since if you had the opportunity to listen to, or actually not listen, but listen and view the webinar conference material, we may have picked up some new listeners. So I just kind of want to just briefly go over the mission and vision of the Sword of the Spirit audio broadcast teachers. We just call ourselves, we're just his servants, okay? We're just the servants of Yah. And so our mission is twofolded. The first is to prepare hearts to seek the Torah of Yah and to diligently obey and teach the laws, commandments, statutes, and judgments of Yah. And then the second part of that twofolded mission is to dispel error and to replace it with truth. And that is something that I really want you to just kind of think on today as we do today's teaching, to dispel error and to replace it with truth. And so we're hoping and praying, and this mission was given to me via Abba Yah, when my spirit was quickened, when he gave me Ezra 7 and 10, that they will seek the Torah of Yah to diligently obey and teach the laws, commandments, statutes, and judgments of Yah. This is how I knew when he called me to teach. That was what he gave to me. But I had to prepare my heart to seek his Torah before I could teach it. Okay? And the vision, is to be successful in preparing other believers to go out and teach a pure Torah to a spiritually dead and lost world, so that there will be a return into the pure faith of Yeshua, the apostles, and the prophets. That's what this is all about, is to prepare other believers to go out and not only obey the word, but also teach it to others, sharing the truth, doing the work of the ministry, bearing fruit to those who are spiritually dead and lost, because we do have a responsibility to our brethren, and that there will be a return, because what we have going on right now is not a return to the pure faith. And I just briefly, before I get into today's teaching, it was this Friday morning, I had someone knock on my door, and I'm not sure what their faith was, but they were out preaching the good news, sharing truth. And normally, back in the day, they come knock at the door and you don't answer. You hide. But I was like, oh, yeah, come on in. I opened up my door, and the guy was sitting at the door, and he was like, well, he wanted to tell me about JC, and he wanted to read a scripture. He said, can I read a scripture to you? And he read a scripture to me. And I said, I just went into, was just being led of the Spirit. I mean, his head was spinning by the time he left my doorstep, just put it that way. You know how like somebody blowing air in your eyes and your eyes are blinking? That's what that's what he was repeatedly doing while I was talking. And so I had prayed, that a seed was planted. He thought he was coming to tell me about our Messiah, but it got turned the other way around. He was actually doing most of the listening while I was doing most of the witnessing. So I thank Yah for the opportunity to plant a seed, and I just felt like I did. That was done yesterday when he came. And so he said he hoped that we will be able to speak again, and I said, sure, I have no problem, because sometimes you never know. Sometimes there may be people coming from other faiths, and they're coming, and they thinking that they're witnessing to you with their false Christian doctrine or whatever it is that they're bringing, and you have the opportunity now to reason the scriptures, to show them the hope that is in you. And that's what I didn't run from it. I welcomed it. I was happy to speak to him. And so I'm going to go ahead and get into today's 163rd audio broadcast teaching. This teaching was actually inspired last Sabbath when one of the participants asked about the 12-hour Sabbath day, because there are many people, as this person stated, that are now saying, okay, the Sabbath is not 24 hours, it starts from the morning into the evening. And so today's 163rd, cannot believe it's 163 shows, but 163rd teaching is entitled The 12-Hour Sabbath Day Lie. Okay? We know as the Most High, He is awakening His people. His chosen people are awakening from the four corners of the earth. We are awakening to the truth of who we are. However, unfortunately, as we talked about in a previous show, many are awakening, but they're not awakening unto righteousness. Our people right now, they're all over the place. And so this is one of the reasons why many, they were excited. It's like that parable of the seed sower. They were excited about the truth and the revelation of the true faith of our Messiah. And then, depending on the soil that the seed fell on, now that seed they're starting to fall off into damnable doctrine, where some were in the faith, and now they're starting to go off. And I'm starting to see this more and more, where people who I thought was on fire for Yah, and now they're going off into New Age mysticism, all Egyptology, all kind of stuff, okay? And so one of the damnable doctrines that, that we're going to deal with today is the 12-hour Sabbath day, where they're saying that the Sabbath is only 12 hours, not the full 24. And so 1 Timothy 4:1, it tells us, and it very clearly states that many will depart from the faith and will follow after deceiving spirits and teachings from demons. We see this going on now. And so some of the questions we're going to answer today is related to the Sabbath day. When is the Sabbath day? What constitutes the beginning of a day. Because this is a new heresy that we're hearing right now. I'm like, where is this coming from? You know, and I've not heard of this. What this heresy says is that the Sabbath day of our Creator is now 12 hours instead of the full 24-hour day cycle. And so what constitutes a day according to Scripture? Can the Messiah's question to his disciples that he spoke in John 11:9 cannot be used to justify a 12-hour Sabbath day? And even more so, according to the Scriptures, when did the people of Yah keep the Sabbath? When did they? The Scriptures are clear. And does the term day unequivocally exclude the night or the evening period of time, thus making a day begin, as I stated earlier, from morning to evening, or some people say it's from morning to morning. And so today we're going to not only expose the 12-hour Sabbath day lie that many are teaching the sheep of Yah, but we're also going to reveal a specific covenant that Yah made with creation that will expose this doctrine for the lie that it is. And so before I get started with today's teaching, I want to just recap our last teaching that we had a few weeks ago. Our 162nd teaching was entitled The Secret Place of Yah. If you did not listen to that lesson, I please go back and listen to that lesson. The lesson was so powerful. It will bless you beyond belief. And really, truly help you to have a closer relationship with the Father Yah. We talked about, we identified what the secret place of Yah is, how do you find it, how to continue to dwell in the secret place, and it was just such a beautiful teaching. If you want to truly become close to our Father Yah, you go back and listen to that 162nd audio broadcast teaching entitled The Secret Place of Yah. And so let's get into today's teaching, the 12-hour Sabbath lie. And I'm calling it a lie because that's exactly what it is. If you will go quickly to 2 Timothy chapter 4, and we're going to read verses 1 through 4. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 1 reads, I solemnly charge you before Yah and the Master Yeshua Messiah, he being about to judge the living and the dead at his appearance and his kingdom. Preach the word, stand by it in season and out of season. Convict, warn, encourage with all patience and teaching. For a time will be when they will not endure sound doctrine, but according to their own lust, they will add to themselves extra teachers according to their own desires, and they will turn away their ear from the truth and will be turned aside to fables. When you're turned aside to fables, that means AKA myths, AKA fiction, AKA lies, okay? And so, why are false teaching so deserving of condemnation? Why do false teachings deserve condemnation? Okay? Number one, false teachings, they pervert the word of Yah, okay? But false teachings also affect the direction of our walk, and they take us off the course of righteousness. Think about that for a second. False teachings, they not only pervert the word of Yah, but they take us off the course of righteousness. And eventually, if not turned away from, the effects of that false teaching will determine the outcome of our salvation. And another reason, it's another reason why Yeshua said that teachers are going to be judged more harshly, more stricter than others. If you listen to our webinar conference, something that was played an audio clip at the beginning that was very powerful, okay? And it gave a picture of what Judgment Day will be like, okay? Those who are teachers, whether it's the Father Yah called you or you decided on your own to teach, nevertheless, if you are a teacher and you're teaching people, okay, the scriptures tells us that those who teach will be judged more harshly or stricter than others because they're not only affecting themselves, but they're also affecting every other soul that they lead astray by what they teach if what they're teaching is false. And so many of you are following this 12-hour Sabbath doctrine. Many of you are in danger of having your seal removed because the Sabbath is a seal. The Sabbath is likened, and we've talked about this several times, the Sabbath is likened to the wedding ring because it shows you who you belong to. When the wife and the husband, they wear their rings, this is an outward symbol to the world that I'm off limits. It tells you that I belong to someone, okay? And so before I begin with today's teaching, in light of this past week's webinar conference, I cannot begin to stress the importance of having the set-apart spirit of Yah. And the scriptures cannot be more clear as to when his set-apart day is. They just can't be more clear. And so, but when you don't know how to study and when you don't know how to line up scripture with precepts, you don't know how to line up precepts, and more importantly, when you do not have his set-apart spirit, his Ruach HaKodesh to lead you to all truth, this is when you end up leading yourself to destruction. And so here we are today, where I am forced to dispel this lie called the 12-hour Sabbath. This is part of the mission of the Sword of the Spirit audio broadcast teachers. Part of our mission is to dispel error and to replace it with truth. And so I don't get off into debating, but when I feel that there is something that could truly divert the sheep, and this keeps coming up. This came up earlier this year, and I may have mentioned it a couple of times, but I didn't do a teaching on it. Now it's coming up again. So now I feel compelled to teach on it. And so what will be presented today will shut down this 12-hour Sabbath. Okay, it will be nothing else to discuss. Anybody who wants to keep it after today, because the Most High truly, I thought I was done with this lesson on Thursday, but yesterday and all the way up till today, he still was pouring into me to continue to add, because he wants this to just be settled, okay, once and for all. And so we have to use the scripture as our barometer to measure and to determine truth. We look at our forefathers and we look at the examples as laid out in scripture to show us how we're to walk, okay? And so I want you to go to Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1, and we are going to read verses 1 through 5. Genesis chapter 1, 1 through 5. In the beginning, Yah created the heavens and the earth being without form and empty, and darkness was on the face of the deep. Okay, so we see right here in Genesis 1 and 1 that darkness was on the face of the earth. Okay, darkness was there. Nothing but darkness was there. And it says, and the Spirit of Yah moving gently on the face of the waters. Then Yah said, let light be. And there was light. Okay? And Yah saw the light, that it was good. and Yah separated the light and the darkness. So we see here, darkness was first. And then in verse 3, Yah said, let there be light, and then light appeared. And he said that it was good. And then we see here in verse 4 that Yah separated the light and the dark. Light and dark was not mixed. Okay? It says, and Yah called the light day. So light was called day. Okay? And he called the darkness night. And there was what? Evening, and there was morning. Day one. So the evening and the morning was day one. Light is not darkness, and darkness is not day. But when you have the evening, 12 hours in the evening and 12 in the morning, they make one day. That was day one. Verse 14. Skip down to verse 14. And so, Yah said, let light sources be in the expanse of the heavens to divide between the day and the night. And let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. Okay, so he said, let them be for signs, let them be for seasons, and for days and for years. So these are the light sources, the sources of light that would divide the day and the night. And he said that these sources of light would be for signs, and they would be for seasons, and for days and for years. And many of our people were able to know when specific feast days were or when specific seasons were based off of the light sources, based off of the days. He says in verse 15, and let them be for light sources in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth. And it was so. And Yah made the two great light sources, the great light to rule the day, and the small light and the stars to rule the night. So we see that there are two great light sources, and we're going to find out what those sources are momentarily. And Yah set them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth and to rule over the day and over the night. So we know that these two light sources will rule over the day and rule over night, and to divide between light and the darkness. And Yah saw that it was good, and there was what? Evening, and there was what? Morning. This was day 4. Evening and morning was what? Day 4. Now, some of you might be wondering, what are the light sources? The sun rules the day, and the moon rules the night. Okay? And so what we're seeing in Genesis chapter 1 is the structure of a day, beginning with the evening, 12 hours. All right, darkness was first, beginning with the evening, 12 hours in the evening, and morning, 12 hours, which in their totality make up a complete day. So, the question I have for you is it true that when we see the term day, that it can never refer to the light? When we see the term day, does that mean that day never refers to the night? That's not true. Now, the two great sources for some of you, because I'm reading from the Hebraic Roots Bible. Some of you may have the King James Version. It says the two sources are the great light sources. But the KJV will tell you that it is the sun. Okay, the sun rules the what? Day, and the moon rules the night. And they were created. The moon and the sun and the moon were the two great sources that Yah created on the fourth day. Okay, the sun and the moon were created on the fourth day. In the Hebraic roots, it say the two great light sources, but I want to make it clear that the two great light sources are the sun and the moon. So again, the question that I want to ask you is it true when we see the term day, okay, does that mean that it can never refer to the night? Because this is where many of the 12-hour Sabbath keepers go off. And so let's take a look at Exodus 12. If you can go to Exodus 12, and we're going to read verses 41 and 42. Exodus 12, verses 41 and 42. And it happened from the end of 430 years. It happened on this day. All the armies of Yah went out from the land of Egypt. It is a night of celebration to Yah for bringing them out from the land of Egypt. This night is a celebration for all the sons of Israel to their generation. So we see right here that it is the night is being referred to as the day. Okay, and so the night that they're speaking about, that they're saying is a celebration to Yah, is they're not talking about the Passover. They're celebrating they're not talking about the Passover, but this is the beginning of the 15th day of Aviv, which is unleavened bread, when Israel actually left out of Egypt. Because when you read Exodus 16:1, it says, and they pulled up stakes from Elam, and all the congregation of the sons of Israel came into the wilderness, which is Elam and Sinai. It says, on the 15th day of the second month, after they're going out of the land of Egypt. Now, what you can do is, according to Torah, if you can't make the feast, the Passover, on the first month, you can keep it the second month, on the 15th day of the second month. You are able to do that, and there are scriptures that will show you, and I'm not going to read them right now, but because this is not about the feast, but this is about us dealing with this 12-hour Sabbath. But if you weren't able to keep it on the first month, on the 15th day, you were allowed to keep it on the second. And so they're saying that this day, I just wanted to show you that this night, the word night is being referred to as the day, okay? And so sometimes the confusion can come from not understanding the term day in its proper context, because it can't be used in every situation. Day cannot be used in every situation. For example, Strong Hebrews 3:117 for Yom, and this is what Yom, Y-O-M, Yom, this is a Hebrew word for day. It gives us several definitions for Yom, or day. And so, for example, sometimes day can be used to describe a season or a specific time period. Remember, we talked about the two great light sources, the sun and the moon, that will be for signs and for seasons. Sometimes when you see the word day, it is used to describe a season or a specific time period, as in the days of Noah. You will see as in the days of Noah. Now, it's not talking about a 24-hour day, but it's talking about a specific time period, as in those days, okay, as in the days of Noah. Or a day can be used to describe or indicate a 12-hour period, a.k.a. the daytime, okay, the time when it is light outside. This can be, day sometimes can be referred to when it's just that, the daylight time, okay? And then the term day can be used to describe a literal 24-hour period, and it can even mean continually or ever, Day, according to the Blue Letter Bible, can also mean continually or ever. Okay, so I want you to quickly go to Deuteronomy 6, and we're going to read verses 1 and 2, and I'm going to show you how day is being used in Deuteronomy 6, verses 1 and 2. And it's not speaking of day as in the daylight or day as in a 24-hour period day. But as I told you, Strong Hebrews 3:117, Yom, it gave several definitions. And so, again, context is something that is going to be pivotal for you understanding when the Sabbath day is and when the day begins. And so Deuteronomy 6, verses 1 through 12. Remember, I told you day as being used in this proper context here is meaning continually or ever. Deuteronomy 6, verse 1. Now this is a commandment, the statute, and the judgments which Yah your power commanded to teach you, to do them in the land to which you are crossing over to possess it, that you might fear Yah your power, to keep all his statutes and his commandments which I command you, you and your sons and your sons' sons, all the days of your life, that your days may be prolonged. So do you think Yah is meaning you're supposed to keep the commandment and my statutes for 12 hours just during the daylight day? Do you think that Yah was meaning I want you to keep my law, statutes, and commandments for a 24-hour day period? Or was this for a specific season? Okay? Just during this, but as in the days of Noah, that's the only time we were supposed to keep the law, statute, and commandments, because that's what they teach you in Christianity. That was for them. That was for that time, not for us. Or was it Yom, Strong Hebrews 3:117, continually, meaning forever? Okay? This is the proper context. So I wanted to show you, and you're going to see today, we're going to get drenched in Scripture today, because this is the only way you're going to study. You're going to really have understanding of when his true Sabbath is, what constitutes the beginning of a day. If you don't learn anything today, you're going to learn that you're going to have to know how to study. And he gives us his precepts. What did David say? Through your precepts, I get understanding. You're not going to understand this if you take one scripture in isolation and see Yeshua said this and blah, 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 and then run with it and ignore all the other precepts, all other scriptures that contradict it. This is where this 12-hour Sabbath doctrine of demons is based off of. I saw a few videos where people tried to support it, and I'm like, you know what, this has to be shut down, because they did not present any of the scriptures that I'm going to present to you today. They took scriptures in isolation and then went and made a video, and they're leading people astray. You mean to tell me you think that Yah wants you to keep his Sabbath for 12 hours? So if a day is only 12 hours, then what is the rest of the hours? Something floating around in outer space? What's going on with the other 12 hours? It doesn't make sense, okay? And see, we're repeating the same mistakes as our forefathers. And so when you go to Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 40, we see the same pattern repeating. Deuteronomy 4 and 40, when Yah says, you shall keep his statutes and his commandments, which I am commanding you today, so that it may be well with you, your sons after you, so that you may what? Prolong your days. Days meaning continually and forever, not days, the 12-hour daylight time, or days, 24-hour period, or days just for a season. But he's talking about forever, continuously day, okay? Which Yah our power is given to you what? All the days of your life. As long as you are living continuously, we are supposed to keep his Sabbath, period. Keeping his commandments, period. So, Strong Hebrews 3:117, Yom, Y-O-M, also says that day can also mean time. So it can be a specific time. It can mean year or age. So there were numerous definitions. So context. We have to look at the context of Yom, okay? Yom Day is assigned a title, okay? And as a reference point, moving forward, we continue to see it elaborated when we get to specific scriptures, depending on the circumstance. Depending on the situation, Yom will have a different meaning. And so we even see that Yah went before the children of Israel. He went before the children of Israel as a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night to give them light. Okay, once again, when we read, as we will in a moment, you will find that Yah follows the same structure that is laid out in Genesis 1 and 5, separating the night and the day. Okay, and I just want to make a quick thing, because people say, yeah, see, that's right, it's separate. It's separate days. So you trying to tell me only 12 hours is a day? A husband and a wife are separate, but they are one. They are one accord, one purpose, and they have a function, as does day and night. Okay, so go to Deuteronomy chapter 1. Deuteronomy chapter 1, verses 31 through 33, because he told us in Genesis 1 all throughout that the evening and the morning was the first day, and then he created something else, and the evening and the morning was day 2. It is laid out that way. Deuteronomy chapter 1, verses 31 says, and in the wilderness where you have seen how Yah, your Elohim, has borne you as a man bears his son, in all the ways which you have gone until you have come to this place. Yet in this thing you are not believing in Yah, your power, who went before you in the way to seek out a place for your camping, and fire by night, in the evening, to show you the way in which you should go, and in a cloud by day, in daylight. He followed you by fire at night and in a cloud in daytime, evening and the morning. Okay? Go to Deuteronomy chapter 9. We're going to read verses 15 through 17, and then we're going to read verses 21. Deuteronomy 9 and 15, it says, on the day that the tabernacle was reared up, the cloud covered the tabernacle, even the tabernacle of the testimony. And at evening there was on the tabernacle the appearance of fire until morning. So it was always, look what it says. So it was always, the cloud covered it, and the appearance of what? Fire by night. Okay, the fire. When you look up at verse 15, the end of verse 15, it says that it was on the cloud, the pillar of fire by night was there until the morning. In the evening, you're not going to have the moon showing up in the morning. Okay, everything has a purpose that he created under heaven. Even the food that people think is food, like pork, shrimp, crab, and lobster, they have a purpose. They were good, but they were good for the purpose that were created. They were not created to be eaten. Okay? And so it says that as it was always, it says the cloud covered it, and the appearance of fire by night. And whenever the cloud was taken up from over the tabernacle, and so when the cloud was there from evening until morning, okay, this cloud, pillar of fire by night, was there from evening until morning. The lesser light source is for the evening, and when the cloud was taken up in the morning, then they pulled up stakes, whether it was by day or by night. When the cloud was taken up, they pulled up. So they were following Yah. He was leading them. He was leading them by evening and morning, following the same pattern that's laid out in Genesis. And so as it pertains to the Sabbath day of our Abba Yah, let's go to an eyewitness. I want to read from Josephus, who was an eyewitness to many of the Israelite customs, including as to when the Sabbath day was to be kept from amongst the people of Yah. I want you to write this reference down so that way on your own you can look it up. If you have a laptop, you can look it up. But I want you to listen very closely as I read, and I want you to notice when Josephus says the day, and particularly the Sabbath day, begins. And I'm not talking about a Moedim, his appointed feast, but I'm talking about the weekly Sabbath day. So I'm reading from War of the Jews 4:582, 4:582, Josephus. Okay, this is from Josephus. It says, and the last was erected above the top of the pastoria, where one of the priests stood, of course, and gave a signal beforehand with a trumpet at the beginning of every seventh day. So a trumpet would give signal at the beginning of every seventh day. We already know from Exodus 20th that the Sabbath day is on the seventh day. That's the day that Yah chose to be his Sabbath, the seventh day. And Josephus is saying that at the beginning of every seventh day, there was a signal given beforehand with a trumpet. Okay? It says at the beginning of every seventh day in the evening twilight. Okay? In the evening twilight, as also at the evening when the day was finished. What you're seeing here is Josephus is telling you that there was a signal that went beforehand. There was a trumpet at the beginning of every seventh day in the evening twilight, meaning when it is getting ready to get dark. In the evening, it says when the day was finished. It says so it was also given in the evening at the beginning of the seventh day, and it says also at the evening when the day was finished. Let me read this again. This is Josephus, War of the Jews, 4:582. 582. War of the Jews, 4:582. So I don't know if this is chapter 4, verse 582, but this is Josephus. It says, they gave a signal beforehand with a trumpet at the beginning of every seventh day in the evening twilight, and also at the evening when the day was finished. So this is from evening. This is Josephus. He was very aware of when Israel kept the Sabbath. Why did it say he did this? At the evening, at the beginning of the seventh day, which is the Sabbath, and at the evening when the day was finished. So this signal went off just before the Sabbath began on the seventh day, and at the end when the Sabbath was finished, or when the seventh day was finished. Why? I'm going to read the rest. It says, as giving notice to the people when they were to leave off work and when they were to go to work again. Are you listening to this? So this right here, I could stop the lesson right now if I want to. I could stop it right now, but I'm gonna finish, because I promise you by the end of this teaching, this 12-hour Sabbath doctrine will be shut down. It's laughable, okay? It's a joke. It's a joke. Let me read this again. War of the Jews, Josephus, chapter 4, verses 582. It says, where one of the priests stood, of course, and gave a signal beforehand with a trumpet at the beginning of every seventh day in the evening twilight, and also at the evening when the day was finished, as giving notice to the people when they were to leave off of work, meaning I'm going to give you a signal, the trumpet is going to play when it's time for you to leave work because the Sabbath is getting ready to begin, and they say they played a trumpet to signal when they were to go to work again. When now it's over, now let's give you a signal via a trumpet to let you know when it's time for you can return back to your work. Are you listening to this? Look this up yourself. I'm not making this up. War of the Jews, Josephus, chapter 4, verses 582. And so the days do not begin in the evening. Okay, the days do not begin in the morning. Okay, they do not begin at midnight. They do not begin at sunup or sunrise or at the dawn or in the morning or from morning to morning. Okay? The days are from evening to evening. That is when his Sabbath begins, from evening to evening, or some of your scriptures may say from even. Okay? That is when his days begin and end, from evening to evening, and it's also when his Sabbath begins and ends. Deuteronomy 24, verses 9 through 15. Remember that which Yah your power did to Miriam in the way as you came out of Egypt. When you lend your neighbor any kind of loan, you shall not go into his house to get his pledge. You shall stand outside, and the man to whom you lend shall bring the pledge outside to you. And if the man is poor, you shall not sleep with his pledge. You shall certainly give back the pledge to him at sundown, and you shall lie down in his own clothing and shall bless you. And it shall be righteousness to you before Yah your power. You shall not oppress a poor and a needy hired servant of your brothers or of your strangers who are in the land within your gates. In the same day, listen again, I'm reading Deuteronomy 24, verses 9 through 15. Listen, because Yah is speaking about when you are supposed to pay a person that you have hired to do a job. Deuteronomy 24 and 14. You shall not oppress a poor and a needy hired servant of your brothers or of your strangers who are in your land within your gates. In the same day, you shall give him his hire. In the same day, look at verse 15, you shall give him his hire. Do not let the sun go down on it. Are you looking at this? Do not let the sun go down on it. Why is it saying do not let the sun go down? Why is it saying do not let the sun go down on the day that you hire someone? You're supposed to pay them on that day. It says in the same day you shall give him his hire. Okay? Do not let the sun go down on it. Why is he saying this? Could this not be because once the sun goes down and once it becomes evening that it is a new day? He says, for he is poor and has lifted up his heart on it, that he cry not against you to Yah, and it be sinned against you. Now, I'm going to explain this in a minute. I want to read another version, because another version really reads this even more clear. It says, each day before sunset. Are you listening to this? Each day before sunset, meaning before the sun sets, pay them for that day's work. They need the money and have counted on getting it. If you do not pay them, they will cry out against you to Yah, and you will be guilty of sin. I love how this reads. When the sun, before the sun sets, if someone has done a job for you, Yah says to pay. This is Torah, Deuteronomy 24. I'm reading Deuteronomy 24, verses 9 through 15. And particularly, pay attention to verse 15. He says if you hire someone to do a work, especially if they're poor, He says before the sun sets, you are supposed to pay them the work for that day that they work. Why? He says because they need the money and they have counted on getting it. He is poor. Okay? He says, and if you don't pay a person the same day and the next morning comes, he says that if they cry out to me, you're going to be guilty of sin. He said because he is poor and he is counted on it. I'm going to read a precept, and you can just write this down. Don't go to it. Just write this down. This lines up with Leviticus 19:13. It says, you shall not oppress your neighbor or rob him. The wages of a hired man are not to remain with you all night until the morning. If someone has done a job, you're supposed to pay them within that 24-hour period. You understand what I'm saying? And he says, don't let the sun go down. You pay them before the sun set. Why? Because that's when a new day begins. And when the sun set in the evening, that's a new day. I'm going to show you another. Go to Matthew 20, because I'm going to show you that even our master Yeshua followed the Torah. He even followed Leviticus 19:13 and Deuteronomy 24:15 when he gave his disciples a parable. Quickly go to Matthew chapter 20. We're going to read verses 1 through 16. Matthew 20. This is Yeshua speaking to his disciples. You know, he gave many parables. He says, for the kingdom of heaven is like a man, a house master, who went out when it was early to hire workers into his vineyard. And he bargained with the laborers for a denarius per day. And he sent them to his vineyard. And going out about the third hour, he saw others standing idle in the market. Okay, the third hour is anywhere from the third hour. Well, we'll come back to this. And he saw them standing around in the market, idle, meaning they're just standing around. They're not really doing much, nothing. That's what he's basically saying. And so it says in verse 4 that Yeshua said to them, you also go into the vineyard, and I will give you whatever is just, okay? And they went. Again, going out about the 6th and the 9th hour, he did the same thing. We're going to talk about these hours in a moment, okay? So he went out again, the 6th and the 9th hour. He did the same thing. And going out about the 11th hour. So now he's going out much later in the day, the 11th hour. And he found others standing idle, okay? And he said to them, why do you stand here idle all day? Like, why are you just standing around here doing nothing? Okay, verse 7. And they said to him, because no one has hired us. And so Yeshua said to them, you also go into the vineyard, and you will receive whatever is just. So this parable, he's using a master, okay? But this is symbolic. He said, you go in the vineyard, and he said, you will receive what is just. Remember, early in verse 1, we learned that he worked out, in verse 2, that he worked out 1 denarius as far as payment, okay? And so, now look at let's read in verse 7. They said to him, we're standing here idle because no one hired us. And he said to them, you also go into the vineyard, and you will receive whatever is just. Then look at verse 8. It says, but evening having come, the evening, having that it's now evening is coming, it says the master of the vineyard said to his manager, call the workers and pay them the wage. So the master is saying, look, it's getting ready to be the evening. It's getting ready to be dark. Okay? Go and call the workers and pay them. Go and pay them. Beginning from the last to the first. And the ones having come the 11th hour, each received a denarius. So he started with the last ones that got there, and then he worked his way back up all the way to the ones who started in the 3rd hour. So from those who got there from the 11th hour, all the way, he started with those who got there last in the 11th hour, all the way to those who started in the 3rd hour. And he says that having come the 11th hour, they each received a denarius. And having come the first, meaning the ones who got there the earliest, they suppose that they should have received more. They like, wait a minute, how we all getting the same amount? We've been working here all day. He just got here, and he getting the same as us. And he says, and they all each received a denarius, and having received it, they murmured against the master. So now they're complaining, okay, saying these have performed but 1 hour. They just got here 1 hour. We've been here all day. What do they say? We've borne the burden of the heat of the day. Look at verse 12. But answering, he said to one of them, friend, I did you no wrong. Did you not agree to a denarius with me? Like, look, didn't you agree in the beginning? We said, look, this is what I'm going to pay you for the time that you work, right? Didn't you agree to that? Verse 14, he said, now take yours and go, meaning take your money and go. I have not done anything wrong. We agreed back in the third hour, in the beginning, what you was going to get. You agreed to it. Now go. He says, I desire to give this to the last as also to you. So he's saying, look, it is my desire to give to the last the same that I gave to you. Or is it not lawful for me to do what I desire with my things? Or is your eye evil because I am good? So the last shall be first, and the first shall be last. For many are called, but few are chosen. So there's a lot going on here. And I'm trying to stick to the 12-hour Sabbath, but there's a lot going on here if you haven't figured it. This is symbolic. Yes, this talking about Yeshua is giving a parable. You know, you see that in the evening, when we look at verse 8, the evening was coming. Yeshua was making the master in this parable, this is symbolic of kingdom work, okay? This is not, and they're like, okay, well, why am I getting one denarius and I've been here all day, but this one just got here for 1 hour? That's not fair, you know? And this is not about money. This is about the fact that it doesn't matter where you come in this truth. Some people say, well, I've been in this truth and I've been laboring for you and I've been doing the work of the harvest and ministering and doing this for 25 years and somebody else only been here 1 year. If they've been here that 1 year and that 1 year they have been faithful, that everything that he has revealed to them, that they have kept and they've walked in it, they're sealed by the set apart spirit. On that day, if Yeshua came 1 year later after they came into the truth, in that last hour, they would receive salvation, just as a person who had been in this truth for 20 years. So it's not about the length of time, but it's about when you have been brought into this truth, when he has revealed this truth to you. What have you been doing during this time? You can have somebody who just came in this truth this year and worked all this year hard, and let's say if Yeshua was coming next year, they would receive salvation just as someone who's been doing this and laboring in this truth for 25 years. There's no such thing as no super salvation. You just either you saved or you not. Because the length of time are you faithful during that time that you've been brought in the truth? Are you sealed on the day that the master comes back to reward payment? Do you understand? But this was not about that, but I had to explain this because this was kind of deep. But again, just sticking with what we're talking about, when you look at verse 8, Matthew 20 and 8, it says when the evening comes, you're going to get paid. Why? Because Leviticus 19 and 13, it says, you shall not oppress your neighbor. You shall not rob him. The wages of a hired man are not to remain with you all night until the morning. Pay them that day. Why? Because the evening signifies the beginning of a new day, just like when we read in Josephus, just like in Genesis chapter 1, where the evening and the morning was the first day and the second day and the third day. Yeshua, even in the renewed covenant, which many refer to as the New Testament, is following the same thing, even in this parable. That is multifaceted. But I couldn't just leave it at focusing on the beginning of the day as evening, as he stated in Matthew 20 and verse 8, that they were going to be paid because the evening was coming. But I had to explain what this parable is about. It's about not being idle and standing around doing nothing. when he come back. When he comes back. Because you don't know. Look at Matthew 20, verse 9. And it says, and the ones having come the 11th hour. The 11th hour is the final hour. Before the day comes, before the day of judgment comes. It's referring to the final hour before the return of our Messiah. And all, when he returns, just like in this parable in Matthew 20, will be paid for their reward for what they have done or what they have not done. Whether when he called, when you were doing the work, what kind of work was you doing? Was you idle? Was you just standing around when he told you to go and work? What was you doing when he come back that 11th hour? The 11th hour is the final hour before the day. When we talking about the day that's talking about in Matthew 20, it's talking about a specific period of time. When you judge, it's not talking about 24 hours, 12 hours daylight. Again, context is pivotal for you to understand this. You're not going to understand it. He says, you're not supposed to have the money all day and go into the morning. He said, well, the poor man, he counted on this. He counted on this. Look at Romans 13. Go to Romans 13, verses 11 and 12. Romans 13:11 says, also knowing this, that now is the time and the hour for you to awake from your sleep. For now our salvation is nearer than we first believed. The night is gone. The night is gone and the day has drawn near. The night is gone, the day. What day? Judgment Day. Judgment Day. That's why I say it's time for you to wake up. Remember, the two great light sources, the moon and the sun. The sun is the greater light that rules the day, and the moon is a lesser light, according to Genesis chapter 1, that rules the night. Paul is saying in Romans 13 and 11 that it's time for you to wake up from your sleep because your salvation is nearer than we believe. Yeshua is on his way. I believe we're in the 11th hour now. I believe we're in that final hour now. When he come back, is he going to come back and see you and see you idle? What is he going to find you doing when he come back? I hope you listening to this. And those in that final hour, if you worked that 1 hour and you were faithful and you were diligent and you used your talents and you did what he told you to do and you were obedient and you were sealed at that time, and you're not lukewarm at that time, then when he comes back to redeem you, you will be rewarded. This was deep. Matthew 20 was deeper than just, I wanted to show you that even the Messiah, even in his parable, he letting you know when the beginning of a day is, and that because if a person is poor, I can't tell you how many times when I didn't get paid until Friday, and in the wintertime it get dark early, and you like trying to, with all your might, trying to get through the traffic, depending on if you get off late, and in the winter it get dark around 5, I'm getting off at 4. I'm trying to take sometimes an hour just to get through the traffic. You're trying to get to the store. I've been times when I didn't have no money, and I had to wait until I got paid on Friday so that I could get the food that I needed before evening, before the sun set, before it went down. Do you understand what I'm saying? So he's saying, look, if you poor, if you don't have the money, look, don't make the person wait till the morning, because if this is Sabbath, if it's Friday evening and the evening is coming in, I'm supposed to get paid on Friday. And I've heard people say the job talking about we ain't had the money. You had to wait until tomorrow to pick up check. Well, shoot, tomorrow is the Sabbath. I keep the Sabbath. The Sabbath begins at the evening. Now you gonna make me wait? If y'all say if they cry out to me, you have sinned. It becomes sin for your employer to hold on to your money and not pay you. He says, do not oppress them. This is stealing because he said, do not rob them. So I had to show you, go to Ephesians 4. Ephesians 4, verses 26 and 27. I'm showing you over and over again in multiple ways using the word day, yom, as according to Strong Hebrews 3:117. I'm showing you in multiple contexts what this means, and specifically when it pertains to when a day begins and when the Sabbath begins. Even examples and parables that our Messiah used, is all lining up. It's all lining up. Ephesians 4:26 and 27 says, be angry, but do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and do not give the devil a foothold. Here we see, once again, when you are angry, he says, don't let the sun go down on your anger. Why? Why he say don't let the moon go down? Why do you say that? Why? Because when the sun goes down, it is what? Evening. And it is the what? Beginning of a new day. Now you are taking your anger over into the next day. Now it has become sin. Even a husband and a wife. That's why when you argue and you upset with each other, you better deal with it and make amends, whatever you got to do. Because if you let it go over into the next day, now you have allowed Satan to have a foothold in your marriage. Because now it's sin. It's sin to both of you. It's sin to both of you. Because it's a new day. Don't let the sun go down. If you angry before that sun go down, y'all better make up, do whatever you got to do. But you need to settle it. And it's not just for married couples, but it's for the body as a whole. If you're angry with somebody, don't let the sun go down. You need to let them know. Otherwise, you've given the enemy a foothold in your life. And you are in sin when you're doing this. But notice, again, because I'm proving that the day begins from evening to evening, and so does his Sabbath. He says, don't let the sun go down. If not, he'd have said the moon. Do you see this? Once the sun go down and the sun set, it's evening. That's a new day. So Yah's telling you right here. He's telling you. I could stop right now if I wanted to, but I'm going to keep going because I want to make sure that it's shut all the way down. And so even all throughout Scripture, as it pertains to the ceremonial laws, we see unclean until evening, over and over and over. You shall be unclean until evening, unclean until evening. Go to Leviticus 11:24 and 25. Leviticus 11, verses 24 and 25 says, and by these you shall be made unclean. Anyone who touches their dead body is unclean until the evening. And anyone who lifts up their dead body shall wash their garments and shall be unclean until when? The evening. This continues over and over and over again in Leviticus 11, verse 27, 28, 31, 32, 39, and 40. That if you touch an unclean person, if you touch a dead body, you are going to be unclean until the evening. Okay? And it says in verse 25, anyone who lifts up their dead body shall wash your garments, and you're going to be unclean until the evening. Why didn't it say until the morning? Because the day begins at evening. This is the reason why. We see this in Torah all over. In Leviticus 14:46, it says, and he who goes into the house all the days he has shut up shall be unclean until the evening. When you look at Leviticus 14, verse 46, and he says, if you go into the house all the days he has shut it up shall be unclean until the evening. What Yah's talking about in Leviticus 14 is if you look at go to Leviticus 14, if you look at the two preceding verses, Leviticus 14, Look at verses 44 and 45. Leviticus 14, verses 44 and 45. When you look at those two verses, you will see that Yah is giving a judgment, okay, on how to properly handle a plague of leprosy that is spread throughout a house. And then he gives a statute, a specific period or element of time, because that's what a statute is a commandment that has a specific period or element of time attached to it. He gives them a statute in which one who, let's say you just so happen to go into a house that has a plague of leprosy, he gives a statute for how long that you will be unclean. And again, it states in Leviticus 14. So when you get to Leviticus 14, verse 46, it says that person will be unclean. Okay? That person would be unclean until the morning. Why? Because that's when it would end. When the morning would come, that plague will be over because the days begin and end from evening to evening. Once the evening is over, it's morning again. Now you're okay. And the same thing, we see the same thing, you shall be unclean till the evening in Leviticus 15, verses 5 through 27, Leviticus 22 and 6. It all states the same thing. You shall be unclean throughout the evening. Even in Numbers chapter 9, in the 14th day of this month, between the evenings, you shall prepare it according to all its statutes and according to all its ordinances. This was for the Passover. This was for the Passover. Between the evenings, the evening and the evening. And so we continue to see this. Numbers 19, as it relates to the priests, same thing. And so let's go to the actual command to keep the Sabbath. We've been talking about this for the past hour, and we haven't even gone to it. Let's go to Exodus chapter 20, and we're going to read verses 8 through 11. Exodus chapter 20, 8 through 11. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, or to keep it set apart. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, and the seventh day is a Sabbath to Yah, your power. You shall not do any work. I'm going to say this again. You shall not do any work, you and your son and your daughter, your male slave and your slave girl and your livestock and your stranger who is in your gate. For in 6 days Yah made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all which is in them. And he rested on the seventh day. On account of this, Yah blessed the Sabbath day and sanctified it. So Yah himself rested on the seventh day. And so things that we can gather from what we've just read in Exodus 28 through 11. First, the Sabbath day is set apart. Okay? We know that the Sabbath day is on the seventh day of the week. Okay? And we know that we are to rest on his Sabbath day and to do no work because it says that Yah rested on the seventh day, okay? And it also says that Yah blessed and sanctified, meaning he made it holy. He set it apart from all the other days, okay? And also, the Sabbath day is a never-ending statute. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, it didn't say anywhere in Exodus 8 through 11 that the Sabbath is a statute. Well, this is why we're going to define what a statute is, because although many read over and over in Scripture, you should keep the laws, you should keep the statutes and the judgments. I hear people reading that all the time and have no idea what a statute is. And so, what is a statute? Well, a statute is a commandment, as I stated earlier, that has a time element. Okay, it has a time element or a method of operation. Statutes tell you what, when, how, why, when. It gives you all, it elaborates on how you are to keep Yah's commandments. Yah's Sabbath and his feast days, they are never-ending statutes. I'm going to say this again. Yah's Sabbath and his feast days are never-ending statutes. If you didn't get an opportunity to check out our webinar conference, please go and watch it in its totality. The first part, we talked about salvation, and then Prina talked about idolatry, and then the last part, we talked about the law, the commandments, which are the laws, statutes and judgments. We talked about the difference because the commandments, those are his teachings and his instructions, okay? Okay? And then the statutes tell you how to keep specific laws or commands that he's given to you. It tells you what, it tells you when, and it tells you how to keep specific commands that he's given to you. And then the judgments, again, they teach you their commands as well, but teach you how to deal with certain issues as they arise. It also can be consequences or punishment if necessary for those who transgress the commandments and the statutes. And so, according to the Blue Letter Bible, a statute is, and this is Blue Letter Bible 2708, means appointed, a custom, a manner, an ordinance, something that is prescribed, and a limit. And so a statute, again, if, let's say, and for example, if you got ill, you had a bladder infection, okay, and let's say that the doctor prescribed antibiotics, okay, the command that is given to you is to take these antibiotics, okay? That's just the command, the law itself, but that is ambiguous. It doesn't tell you when to take it, how many to take it, okay? And so then they give you the statute. The prescription that's on the bottle of the medication are the directions. That's the statute. The statute tells you how many to take. It may say take one pill twice a day or 2 pills every 12 hours. That's the statute. It gives you a limit. If you want to be stiff-necked and decide, oh, well, I'm not going to listen to the directions on the bottle, I'm going to take 3 pills twice a day. Like I said in the conference, when your butt is laid out, passed out, and you wondering why you blacked out, that will be because you probably overdosed because you did not follow the statute, which is the limit, which is, according to the Blue Letter Bible, something that is prescribed, okay? And so I want to read a very important precept regarding the importance of keeping the Sabbath. Let's go to Exodus 31. We're going to read Exodus 31, verses 12 through 18. And Yah spoke to Moses, saying, and you speak to the sons of Israel, charging them, only my Sabbath you shall keep. For it is a statute between me and you for your generations to know that I am Yah, your sanctifier. Okay? And you shall keep the Sabbath, for it is holy for you. The profaners of it shall surely be executed. For everyone doing work in it, that soul shall be cut off from the midst of his people. So we did a lesson recently on you will be cut off. He is saying that the Sabbath, Yah is saying in Exodus 31 that the Sabbath is a sign between me and you and your generations. And it sets you apart. And he says those who profane it, those who transgress it, he said you will be executed. Okay? Anybody, he says in verse 14, that does work on it, that soul will be cut off from the midst of his people. And from our lesson that we did, majority of the time when you were cut off, you were destroyed. It says many people, he says work may be done 6 days, okay? Y'all said I give you 6 days to do all the work you want to do. He says, but the 7th day is a Sabbath of rest. It is holy. It is set apart to Yah. Everyone doing work on the Sabbath day surely shall be put to death. Do you understand how serious this is? I'm reading Torah. The seriousness of breaking the Sabbath, he says, you will be put to death. And the sons of Israel, he says, shall guard the Sabbath. Do you know what guard means? That means to protect. To protect it. Like how Nehemiah did, as we're going to read. When they were waiting around the gate. And he said, I'm going to put my hands on you if you don't get away from this gate and respect my Abba Yah Sabbath. You are supposed to guard it. You're supposed to protect it. You don't allow anybody to cause you to break Yah's Sabbath. Even if it's your employers, you tell them I'm not doing it. And then you go to the Father Yah. He is the employer of all employers. We have to get to a point where we trust Yah. We have to get to that point. Because many of our brothers and sisters, we work every Sabbath and we don't think nothing of it. How can you do that and not like, be grieved in your spirit about it. At some point, you should be on your knees crying out, fasting, and praying for y'all to open another door where you can work somewhere where you don't have to break your Sabbath. But some of you haven't probably even gone to the Father. You just working and saying, oh, I'm in the land. Oh, Babylon laws. Yah can cause your employers to show favor. He can cause your enemies to be at peace with you. How many of you have done that? If you're working on the Sabbath, you need to go back and read Exodus 31. Some people say you're being dogmatic. I know Yah shows us mercy and grace, but have you even tried? Do you know that it is against the law for someone to cause you to keep the Sabbath if it is for a religious reason? I know a few people who had to, and I'm not going to say this on here, but who actually were able to get them off of them. You cannot make someone work on the Sabbath if it is for a religious reason. They can't make you do that, okay? But it says the sons of Israel shall guard the Sabbath to observe and to do the Sabbath for their generations. It is a never-ending covenant. A never-ending covenant is a statute. It is a statute. It is a day, Yom, Strong Hebrews 3117, that means forever and continually. It is a sign forever between me and the sons of Israel, for in 6 days Yah made the heavens and the earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. And when he finished speaking with him on Mount Sinai, he gave to Moses the 2 tablets of the testimony, the tablets of stone that was written by the finger of Yah. The commandments in this covenant was written by the very finger of Yah. So if Yah created it and he created all, do you not know you can go to him? Because I hear plenty of people like, oh, I can't do this, oh, I can't attend the conference, or I can't do this, I can't stay because I got to work. Like, I'm like, and it's said so cavalier and so casual. Like, I would be grieved. I wouldn't do it. I have not, and I have not had, and I share this testimony all the time, where I did not have work and I have no money. When I say no money, I mean no money coming in for 5 months. I refused to take a job. I could have had jobs, yeah, if I wanted to work on the Sabbath. We are at that time where we're going to have to trust him. And so we're going to just listen to this quick audio clip, and then we're going to come back.
When you give your body over to the Most High, that is it. You got to do his will, not your will. You can't sit up here and say, ooh, I'm going to make something happen. He already said what he wanted it to be. Humble yourself and say, okay, I'm really going to do what the Most High said he wanted me to do. This is the people that's going to make it into the kingdom. It ain't going to be the people stepping in front of the Most High and saying, no, I think I'm going to change this. I'm going to make this what I want it to be. That ain't what you ain't going to make it into the kingdom being like that, people. We in the last days, people. This is not no joke to be playing around with no Sabbath. You know what I'm saying? You calling yourself a Hebrew, the Sabbath got to be holy. The Sabbath got to be sacred. You can't play around with the Sabbath. You only want to, somebody convince you to only worship the Most High for 12 hours? Are you kidding me? Why you can't give him a whole day? Why you can't give him a whole 24 hours? You think he'll get mad at you for saying I'm gonna cease from my work for 24 hours? You think you're gonna he convinced you that you're gonna go to hell for worshiping the Most High? How can somebody convince you of that? Like, everything that you do, you got to put it on the table. You got to weigh it out. You got to see, like, you got to say, okay, if I'm wrong, you know, would I get in trouble for this? Like, could I be in a lake of fire for this one? You know what I'm saying? Weigh that stuff out, man. Because if you, just think about it. Okay, I worship the Most High when the sun go down and even in the day. You think he going to get mad at me for that? Show me the scripture on that one. he gonna be like, okay, sure, he did extra for me. You know what I'm saying? But if you taking away from the Most High, I said, I ain't gonna serve him on that time. So when you took away that whole night time and then you said, oh, I'm gonna go ahead and work, you taking a chance of working on the Sabbath. And so if you working on the Sabbath, guess what? He said your soul gonna get cut off. So if you put it on a scale and you weigh it out, if you only keeping a Sabbath in the daytime, your soul could be in jeopardy. But your soul can't be in jeopardy if you covering your tracks and you doing it from evening to evening. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't even say, this will trick me out. He didn't even say do it in the daytime and then that night. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can see, like, you still got to give him 24. He gave you 24, 6. He gave you 24, 6 days a week to do what you want to do. You do what you want to do for 6 days, 24 hours. So you mean to tell me you can't cease for 24 hours? Unbelievable, man. All right.
Yeah, exactly. It's unbelievable. I can't believe that some of you have even been duped into believing into a 12-hour Sabbath doctrine. Some of you have been keeping it a full 24 hours. You will find nowhere in the scriptures that I have read, nowhere in the examples that I have read, not even in Yeshua's examples, that it's 12 hours and yet, or that it begins in the morning for that reason. And so again, Yah's Sabbath day is a never-ending covenant. It is a statute, okay? That means we cannot keep his Sabbath any way we please, whenever we please, however we choose to do it, okay? But we can only keep it according to the word that he has given to us, okay? It tells you that his covenant was written by the very finger of Yah himself. Go to Exodus 16. Go to Exodus 16, because our people, we just don't understand how important the Sabbath day is. I'm going to tell you, I know it's important. Because 14 years ago when I cried out to Yah, because I wanted to know who he was, I was in a Christian church, and I wasn't being fed. I was asking questions they couldn't answer. When I was reading, I saw it didn't line up with Scripture, and when I read Matthew 7, verses 21 through 23, where they were saying, many will say on that day, I did this in your name, I cast off demons, I prophesied. And when he said, I told them, I never knew you, depart from me, you who work of iniquity, I'm like, how horrible would it be to think that I was saved all the way up to the day of judgment, the day, and then find out that I'm going to hell, that I never knew him. And I cried out to Yah. I was compelled first to ask for forgiveness because I felt like I had been worshiping him in vain. And I said, if I have been worshiping you in vain, I said, please forgive me. And I said, reveal. And I know that this was nothing but the Ruach doing this because I didn't know what to pray for Yah to reveal himself. I cried out. I said, reveal yourself to me. I want to know who you are. Reveal yourself. When I cried out, reveal yourself to me, all I heard was, you must keep my Sabbath. That's it. You must keep my Sabbath. And so that's why I'm not falling for the okie doke. Some of y'all drinking the Kool-Aid right now. You're drinking the Kool-Aid and getting ready to go off the cliff with this 12-hour Sabbath lie. That's why no one can fool me with this. We are in the last days, as the brother said. Satan he's crafty. He's doing the same thing. They're playing the same deck of cards. He ain't doing nothing, pulling the same tricks he did in the beginning with Adam and Eve, and he's still doing the same thing. Many of you have been on the course of righteousness, on the path. He's shown you his ways, and you have allowed a false prophet, a false teacher that has no understanding to come and twist the scriptures and to convince you that you're supposed to just keep his Sabbath during the day from morning into evening. Forget about you could work last night. That's why I'm like, he was laughing in the audio clip, and I was laughing too, because I'm like, who is believing this foolishness? Who's believing this? Somebody don't pour water in your ears and you don't miss some of the commands. And so Exodus chapter 6, and just like the brother said, look, if I'm wrong, I'm not going to hell because I kept the whole 24 hours. Because like he said, I covered myself. I kept an extra 12. But if you're wrong, you have missed half of his Sabbath, you have worked, you've done everything else, you're on your way to hell. So let's read Exodus 16. And for every soul that you led astray, teaching that false doctrine, you got a lot of blood that's going to be on your hands. So Exodus 16:1 says, and they pulled up stakes from Elam, and all the congregation of the sons of Israel came into the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elam and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after their going out from the land of Egypt. And all the congregation of the sons of Israel murmured against Moses and against Aaron in the wilderness. And the sons of Israel said to them, would that we have died at the hand of Yah in the land of Egypt, in our sitting by the flesh pot, in our eating bread to satisfaction. For you have brought us out here in the wilderness to kill all this assembly with hunger. So now they complaining, oh, if we'd have just died and we was in Egypt, you brought us out here to die. We hungry. They mumbling and grumbling and complaining. And Yah said to Moses, behold, I will rain bread from the heavens for you, and the people shall go out and gather the matter of a day. In its day, it says the people shall go out. So Yah says that, look, I will rain bread from the heavens for you. Okay, Yeshua and Yah, they were with the children of Israel the entire time. They were with them. He says, I am, that's Yeshua, will rain bread from the heavens for you, because he performed all the works. And it says, and the people shall go out and gather the matter of a day in its day. So I may what? Test them. Again, as Preeta talked about this last week in our webinar conference, the Sabbath is the test commandment. It's the test commandment. To see, as you continue reading, to see whether they will walk in my Torah or not. Because if you're believing in a false 12-hour Sabbath day, you're not. This is a test. Yah is testing you. Many of you are being tested, and you have fallen for the banana in the tailpipe. You have allowed someone to convince you that you are only supposed to keep the Sabbath 12 hours from morning until evening. Many of you are doing this because in your heart, you want to be at the club Friday night. In your heart, you want to go shopping on Friday night. In your heart, you want to go out to dinner or go to the movies. You want to still be able to do the other things you were doing that's in the world, and that way that gives you a loophole. Oh, now I don't have to feel bad about working on Friday because I was doing that anyway. Now I got an excuse. Oh, somebody came out with a 12-hour Sabbath. Oh, yeah, let me take hold to that. That way, because I've been working on the Sabbath anyway, so I won't feel bad or feel guilty about it. I'll just say I believe it's 12 hours. Foolishness. Straight foolishness. It says, so Yah said, look, will rain manna from the heavens, and the people will go out and gather the matter of a day in its day. He says, so that I may test them to see whether they will walk in my Torah or not, whether they're going to obey me. So here's the test. So listen to what Yah says. He says, and it shall be on the 6th day, that's the day before the Sabbath. Remember, the 7th day is the Sabbath day of Yah. On the 6th day, they shall prepare what they bring in. That means from Thursday sundown to Friday sundown. From Thursday evening to Friday evening before the sun go down, that is the 6th day. That's the day that you will actually prepare whatever you're going to prepare. But on Friday, before that sun go down, you need to have already prepared or bought or got whatever it is you're going to have on the Sabbath day. And it shall be double that you gather day by day. So what does that mean? So that means on Friday, anywhere, you may want to cook something Thursday night or Friday, however you want to do it. But by Friday, before that sun go down, whatever you're going to cook, whatever you're going to bake, whatever you're going to broil, whatever you're going to buy, if you're going to buy something, make sure that you cook, bake, broil, or buy enough for 2 days. That cover 2 days. That's why it says double, and it shall be double what you gather. So that it will cover Friday evening when you eat once the Sabbath begins, at the beginning of Friday evening, and for during the day and the morning, like today. You know, we bought pizza last night before the sun went down, so we ate a few slices last night, and then we have some more slices to eat today, okay? Because until the sun go down today, we cannot cook, we can't bake, we can't broil, I can't go order nothing until the sun goes down. It says, and Moses and Aaron said to all the sons of Israel, at evening, meaning when it becomes evening, you shall know that Yah has brought you from the land of Egypt. And in the morning, you shall see the glory of Yah. So look at this. We see right here in Exodus chapter 16 that what we read in Genesis chapter 1, the pattern, and the evening and the morning were the first day, we see this in verse 6. And at evening you shall know that Yah has brought you out of the land of Egypt. And it says, in the morning you shall see the glory of Yah. In his hearing, you're murmuring against Yah and we. And what we that you murmur against us. And Moses said, when Yah gives you flesh to eat in the evening, okay, he's going to give you meat to eat in the evening, and then in the morning he's going to give you bread. So he's going to supply you on this day. You're going to be supplied. On the sixth day, he is going to supply you with flesh, meaning meat in the morning, and then meat in the evening. You're going to get meat, and then he says in the morning you're going to get bread. So you're going to be satisfied. Okay? Again, look at verse 8. You see the evening and the morning being used together, following the same pattern as Genesis 1. To satisfaction, when Yah hears your murmuring, which you are murmuring against him, you will see. And what are we? Your murmurings or your complainings are not against us, but against Yah. So he's saying, look, you're not complaining against me and Aaron. This is what Moses said. He said, when you're complaining, you're complaining against Yah. He said, because we don't need following Yah's orders. And Moses spoke to Aaron, say to all the congregation of the sons of Israel, come near before Yah, for he has heard your complaining. And it happened, as Aaron was speaking to all the congregations of the sons of Israel, they turned towards the wilderness, and behold, the glory of Yah appeared in the cloud. And Yah spoke to Moses, saying, I have heard the murmurings or the complaining of the sons of Israel. Speak to them, saying, between the evenings, are you seeing this? Between the evenings, from evening to evening, you shall eat your flesh, and in the morning you shall be satisfied with bread. And you shall know that I am Yah, your power. And it happened in the evening. When the evening, are you looking at this? In the evening, the quail came up and covered the camp. And in the morning, a layer of dew was around the camp. So again, as laid out for us in Genesis 1, we continue to see the structure, even the food that Yah provided for them. The manna, the bread, the flesh, what he provided, it was in the evening. And then in the morning, he provided double for them. Again, following the evening and the morning was the first day. Following the complete structure, again, as laid out in Genesis 1 for a complete day. Okay? And so let's go down. Let's go down to verse 22. Let's go down to 22. Exodus 16, verse 22. And it came about on the sixth day. So first, Yah showed them how it's going to happen. He showed them through his example, I'm going to provide, and I'm going to give you double. I'm going to give you flesh, and I'm going to give you bread. So you're going to have enough for that day. Okay? Now, they're getting ready to be tested. So look down here. Exodus 16, verse 22. And it came about on the sixth day, they gathered double bread. Okay? So on the sixth day, they gathered twice the amount of bread. 2 omers for one. And all the leaders of the congregation came and reported to Moses. And he said to them, that is what Yah has said. Tomorrow is a rest, a set-apart Sabbath to Yah. So he's like, okay. So on the sixth day, they're gathering what they're going to gather. They're gathering what they're going to gather. So this is anywhere between Thursday evening and Friday evening where they're gathering bread. So by the time the sun sets on Friday, why? Because it's before the sun set on Friday. Yeah, before the sun sets on Friday, Moses is saying, okay, this is what Yah told you to do, to gather twice the amount. He says, because tomorrow is the set-apart Sabbath to Yah. What is he talking about tomorrow? He's not talking about in the morning. He's talking about tomorrow when the sun go down in the evening. That's when tomorrow begins. When the sun go down, it's going to be the Sabbath to Yah. This is what Moses says. Whatever you're going to bake, you need to bake it. Boil whatever you will boil. And lay up for yourselves all that is left over, okay? So you bake it and you broil it and you leave it off and you keep it until the morning. Meaning what they had boiled, baked, or prepared the previous day before the sun went down would be sustained by Yah until the morning so that when they woke up, they would eat it and it would not spoil, it would not become rotten. Let's continue reading. Exodus 16:24, and they laid it up until the morning, okay? Just like I had my food last night, now we're fortunate because we live in a time of refrigeration, okay? They didn't have no refrigerator, but Yah was going to make sure that whatever they baked or broiled, he was going to make sure that he sustained it for 2 days because he's commanded them not to go out on the 7th day and look for nothing because you're not going to find nothing. He says you're going to lay it up into the morning, and just like when I woke up this morning, whatever I had made or prepared or bought for yesterday in the morning, I'm eating that today because it's still the Sabbath. Do you understand? When it's talking about to the morning, it's talking about the daylight. During the morning, the daylight, the 12 hours in the morning that is light outside. We're in that time period right now. Again, we have to stay in the context for strong Hebrews 3:117 Yom. When it's talking about into the morning, it's not talking about the next day. We are still in the Sabbath. But it's the morning, meaning the daylight, the 12-hour daylight time of the Sabbath, because the evening and the morning is day one. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so Yah made sure that what they baked or broiled, even though they didn't have a refrigerator, he made sure that he would sustain it. Okay? And it says so in verse 24, and they laid it up until the morning, and Moses commanded, and it did not stink, and no maggots was in it. And Moses says, eat it today, for today is the Sabbath to Yah. Okay? Today you will not find it in the field. Now it's the Sabbath. So what I stored up and made sure that my son and I had twice as much for today, okay. I have food to eat. I don't have to go in there and bake and broil and make anything. Do you understand what I'm saying? He says, now I can eat what I stored up for today because today, like Moses is saying in verse 25, is the Sabbath to Yah. So if I decided I want to go out to the grocery store and go buy something, now I'm sinning because we told you not to go out there and go try to buy nothing. We're supposed to be going out there trying to find no food now. We were supposed to make sure we prepared that before the sun went down on yesterday, on Friday. Okay? And so he says, today you will not find it in the field. You shall gather it 6 days, and on the 7th day is a Sabbath. In it none will be found. And it happened on the 7th day because, we got some people that's going to be hard-headed. Look at verse 27. And it happened on the 7th day. Some of the people went out to gather and did not find any. And Yah said to Moses, how long will you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws? Yah said, y'all hard-headed. Didn't I tell y'all not to go out there? Didn't I tell you wasn't going to be nothing out there, yet your hard-headed butt want to go out there anyway? He says, behold, because Yah has given the Sabbath to you, therefore he is giving you 2 days of bread on the 6th day. Moses said, look, Yah gave you enough bread on the 6th day before the sun went down so that you would have enough so you wouldn't have to be going out here looking for no bread. He said, I gave you enough bread for 2 days. So why are you out here with your stiff-necked butt looking for bread when I told you it's my set-apart day? In verse 30, and the people, let me read verse 29. And behold, because Yah has given the Sabbath to you, therefore he is giving to you 2 days of bread on the 6th day. Each one of you remain in your place. Do not let anyone go out from his place on the 7th day. And the people rested on the seventh day. And the house of Israel called its name manna, and it was like the seed of coriander white, and it tastes like cakes with honey. I want to read a precept. Go to Leviticus 23, 1 through 3. We're going to read Leviticus 23, verses 1 through 3. And Yah spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, and you shall say to them, The set feasts of Yah, which you shall proclaim as set-apart gatherings, shall be these. These are my appointed feasts. Work is to be done 6 days, and on the seventh day shall be a rest, and shall be a Sabbath of rest, a holy gathering. You shall do no work. It is a Sabbath to Yah in all your dwellings. And I'm not going to read all of this, but I'm just going to read just a couple, because these are where his feasts are listed. And I want to show you how his feasts are statutes, because they have a commandment, as you will see, that has an element of time. And so when you look at Leviticus 23, let's go down here where it tells you on the Passover. Look at verse 5. In the first month, on the 14th of the month, between the evenings, look at this, between the evenings, from evening to evening is the Passover. And then he tells you right after that the 15th day is the feast of unleavened bread. You shall not eat any unleavened bread for 7 days. What if somebody say, well, I don't want to do that. I'll just won't eat unleavened bread for 6 days. Y'all understand. God know my heart. This is a statute. And if you didn't keep the statute, you was going to be cut off. We can't, I'm just going, he said evening to evening. I'm just going to keep the Passover because I believe it's 12 hours in a day. So I'm going to just keep it from morning to evening. Again, stiff-neck. Doing what you want to do when you want to do it. And Yah spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel. Well, let's go back. I want to go back up. Go to verse 7. And on the first day you shall have a holy gathering. You shall do no laborer's work, and you shall bring near a fire offering to Yah 7 days, and the seventh day shall be a holy gathering. You shall do no laborer's work. And Yah spoke to Moses, Speak to the sons of Israel, and you shall say to them, When you come in the land which I am giving to you, and have reaped this harvest, and have brought in the sheaf at the beginning of your harvest to the priest, then you shall wave the sheaf before Yah for your acceptance. On tomorrow of the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it. And then he tells you to prepare a lamb, in the day that you wave it, one without blemish. And it just goes on and on for all of his feast days. He tells you that they're Sabbath, and he tells you, let's just skip down because I'm not going to read all. Go to verse 24, Leviticus 23:24. Speak to the sons of Israel, saying, In the 7th month, on the first day of the month, a holy Sabbath shall be to you, a memorial acclamation of the resounding of the trumpets, a holy gathering. You shall do no laborer's work. You shall bring a fire offering to Yah. And Yah spoke to Moses. Also on the 10th of this 7th month shall be a day of atonement, a holy gathering. You shall humble yourselves and weaken your bodies and bring a fire offering. So you're supposed to fast. Again, a statute is a commandment, like I told you earlier, that has a time element to it. There is a method of operation that tells you what, when, and how to keep Yah's commandments. Yah's Sabbath, his weekly Sabbath, as well as his Moedim, his feasts, they are never-ending statute. Again, a statute is an appointment. It's an appointed time. I can't just keep his Passover in America. I can't be over in Ireland. I must go to the place that he chose to put his name, and that is Israel. You can't keep, the only feast you can keep here is shofar, which is trumpets, and atonement. You can't keep the rest. You cannot. That's Yom Kippur. You cannot keep the rest of the feast days wherever you choose, because his feast days, these are never-ending statutes. Again, yes, he did command that we keep his feast days from generation to generation, but that's the command. What does the statute say? Remember, the statute is a command that has a time element, that has a method of operation. It tells you what, when, how to keep it, where to keep it, what to do. As you look and you keep looking over and over and over again, you're going to see we're not supposed to do any work. It's at a certain time on a certain day. I can't say I'm going to keep the Passover on the 20th day when he say the 14th day. I can't say, I'm going to keep unleavened bread on the 17th day when he say the 15th day. I'm going to keep it in Ireland when he told me that I'm supposed to be in Jerusalem, the place where he put his name. He said, you shall not do it wherever you choose. We ain't supposed to just keep his feast days wherever we want. He told you you're supposed to have a lamb without spot or blemish. It's supposed to be a male, 1 year old. The Israelite men were supposed to go and kill it. But our stiff-necked Israelite brethren, because they want to just keep it, and I get it. You want to keep the feast. But his feasts are statutes. Are you looking at this? You can't keep it however you want, whenever you want, wherever you want, however you want to do it. You cannot do it. When you go into a beef market, you don't know how old that lamb is. You don't know the lamb is a year old or not. You don't know if that lamb has spots or blemishes, bullet holes, stab wounds. You don't know anything. You don't know how that lamb was killed, and that it had to be killed on a specific day. You don't have any idea. When you are offering up anything to Yah, you cannot just offer up anything to him however you choose to do it, just for the sake of doing it. It's okay to acknowledge the feast days and to learn about them, because these are rehearsals, and we will be doing them in the millennium and in the kingdom. But they have to be done the right way. Yeshua never came and did anything differently than what is laid out in Torah. Yet our stiff-necked butts think that we can do and keep his statutes however we want. That's why I'm talking about statutes. Our people, we are in agreement with the laws or the commandments and the judgments. But when it comes to them statutes, that's where Israel fall off. Because we're just like our forefathers. We want to do things when we want. The Sabbath is a statute. He told you 6 days, do all your work. Get double on the 6th day for whatever you're going to eat, bake or broil, but don't go out here on the 7th day and work. Don't go out here and look for no food and buying food. But what do we want to do? What did we see in Scripture? They wanted to go out and look for something. Then there was someone who went out on the 7th day picking up sticks. That's why his butt got stoned to death. He got cut off in the midst of his people, as he said you would in Exodus 31, because we don't want to listen. We want to do things when we want to do it. His Sabbath day is not from morning to morning or morning to evening. Nowhere in any of the scriptures we've read have we seen anyone following that. Even Josephus, he is an eyewitness to the times. They blew a trumpet before the beginning of the Sabbath and when the Sabbath ended, to let the people know when it's time for you to get off of work and when they can return. Even in the parable Yeshua used, same thing. You got paid in the evening, because it tells you in Leviticus that you are not to oppress or rob the poor. You don't know if you make them wait until the morning. Somebody made me wait until the morning. I might not have been able to get anything to eat on the Sabbath. You don't know what bills people have to pay. Maybe somebody in the morning, they had an arrangement with the light company or the gas company, and if you wait till the morning, their gas is going to be cut off. Their lights is going to be cut off because you didn't pay them, and they didn't have a chance to pay them before the sun. And you may be trying to make arrangements. They saying, no, we can't wait until the morning. We can't wait until daylight. We need this before the sun go down. Then Yah said they cry out to him, it's going to be seen to you. Go down to verse 32. Yah says, it is a Sabbath of rest to you, and you shall humble your souls in the 9th of the month at evening. From evening unto evening you shall keep the Sabbath. I could stop right now. He says from evening to evening, you shall keep his Sabbath. From evening into evening. I've had people like listening, oh, well, that was just only for the Sabbath. That was just only for his feast day. No, it's not. No, it's not. Even in examples we looked at, it's still the same thing from evening to evening. Okay, his feasts are statutes, and so are his Sabbaths, as you are looking at it, plural. Not just his feast days, but his weekly Sabbath as well. I'm going to read it again. Look at verse 30 through 32 as it pertains to the Day of Atonement. Leviticus 23, 30 through 32. And any person who does any work in this day, I shall even should cut off that person from the midst of his people. You shall do no work. It is a never-ending statute throughout your generations. In all your dwellings, it is a Sabbath of rest to you. You shall humble your souls in the ninth of the month at the evening. From evening to evening, you shall keep your Sabbath. And so let's see what Yeshua constituted as a day. What did he constitute as a day, a full day? Because we're going to read a scripture that many 12-hour Sabbath keepers like to use to say, oh, well, even the Messiah said that there are only 12 hours in the day. So let's go to this scripture and bring the true understanding of what's being said. Go to John chapter 11, and we're going to read verses 1 through, let's read 1 through 8. We're going to know John 11, 1 through 9, but we're going to begin with 1 through 8. John 11, 1 through 9. Let's go with the first one. John 11 and 1. And there was a certain sick one, Lazarus from Bethany of the village of Miriam and her sister Martha. And it was Miriam who anointed our master with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. Then the sister sent to Yeshua, saying, Master, behold, the one whom you love is sick. And hearing, Yeshua said, This is not sickness to death, but this is sickness for the glory of Yah, that the Son of Yah may be glorified by it. And Yeshua loved Martha and her sisters and Lazarus. Therefore, when he heard that he was sick, then indeed he remained in the place where he was for 2 days. Then after this, he said to his disciples, Let us go to Judea again. And the disciples said to him, Rabbi, just now the Jews were seeking to stone you, and yet you want to go there again. So they like, look, then you was just getting ready to get stoned by the Israelites, and now you getting ready to go back there again? Like, why are you going back there when we just basically got away from them? And so verse 9 is where the 12-hour Sabbath keepers mess up. Look at verse 9. Verse 9 says, when they said, look, are you going back there? Why are you going back there? They was just trying to stone you. Now you trying to go back? Yeshua answered and said, are there not 12 hours in the day? Now look at that. Are there not 12 hours in the day? So this is where they read. See? Yeshua, even Yeshua said that it's 12 hours in the day. Now, many will read this and they automatically think, or shall I say, they're going to make the assumption that the day does not include the night. Okay? They read this, Yeshua said, are there not 12 hours in the day? And they're going to say, see, Yeshua said it too. The day does not include the night. But is this true? Let's look a little bit more carefully and see what Yeshua is really saying. Remember, Yom, Strong Hebrew 3:117, and the many definitions, is Yeshua really saying in this verse that the day is only, a full day is only 12 hours and it doesn't include the night? Remember, Proverbs 14:12 tells us that there's a way to seem right unto man, but in the end are the ways of death. And as I said earlier, the confusion comes from not understanding the term day in its proper context. And so understanding context is an absolute must in order to get the gist of what the Messiah is saying here in John 11 and 9. And so let's read that. Let's reread it again. John 11 and 9. And Yeshua said, are there not 12 hours in the day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble because he sees the light of this world. But if a man walks in the night, he stumbles because there is no light in him, meaning because they have no light. Another version says, and Yeshua answered, are there not 12 hours of daylight? Are there not 12 hours of daylight? Anyone who walks in the daytime will not stumble, for they see by this world's light. Are you understanding what he's really saying here? Yeshua is not saying that there are only 12 hours in a full day. They were asking him, like, look, you want us to go back into Judea. We just escaped from there, and now you trying to go back? He's like, look, I got work to do. And the daytime is the day that people do the work. That's when the majority of the work is being done in the daytime. He says, are there not 12 hours in the day? So we're supposed to hide out for the whole day? We're supposed to hide out the whole day? There's 12 hours in the day. He said, but if you walk in the day, you don't stumble because you're able to get things done in the day because you can see. But if you're doing this at nighttime, you don't have no light. You're going to stumble. You're going to stumble because you can't see. I want to read a precept. Go to John 9 and 4. John 9 and 4. And I'm going to show you this is what he was meaning. He was just talking about there's 12 hours in the daytime. He's not talking about are there not only 12 hours in a full day. That's not what he was saying. And you can see that by what he was saying after that. You can see that by reading what he has after John 11 and 9. When you look at verse 10, he's explaining to you what he's talking about. John 9 and 4. And passing by, Yeshua saw a man blind from his mother's womb, and his disciples asked him, saying, our master, who has sinned, this one or his parents, that he was born blind? So this is what they're equating, because they're saying this for you to be born blind, somebody, either your mother or father, somebody in your generation, this curse has been passed on. Somebody has sinned. Somebody has sinned, and this curse of blindness has passed on to you. Because why are you blind from birth? You understand what I'm saying? And so he says, who has sinned? They asking him, somebody who has sinned. Was it this one or was it his parents that sinned, that this man was born blind? Verse 3, Yeshua answered, neither this one nor his parents sinned, but that the works of Yah might be revealed. So this happened that Yah's glory might be revealed in him. It says, it is necessary for me to work the works of him who sent me while it is still day. What does he mean? Because he said night comes when no one is able to work. He says no one is able to work. So I need to do this in the daytime. This is for the glory of Yah. This is for the glory. Yeshua performed many miracles. Many believe because of the works that he did. Okay? How many people he healed? Healed the sick and opened the eyes of the blind. This was for the glory of Yah. He said, this man didn't sin and neither did his parents sin. But he said, it is necessary for me to work the works of him who sent me while it's daytime. That's why he said, are there not 12 hours in the day? He said, because when the night comes, nobody is able to work because you can't see anything. You're going to be stumbling around. Another version says, while it is daytime, we must do the works of him who sent me. Nighttime is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, he says what? I am the light of the world. While I am in the world, John 9 and 5 says, while I am in the world, he said, I'm the light. I'm the light of the world. And so to prove to you that Yeshua was not saying that 12 literal hours constitute a complete day, I'm going to go to the Blue Letter Bible for day in the context that it is being used in John 11 and 9. Blue Letter Bible for day. In the context when Yeshua said, are there not 12 hours in the day? In this proper context, it says the natural day. The time or the interval or the time between sunrise and sunset. Sunrise and sunset is the daylight. It says contrasted with the night. Contrast is different. What is the contrast or what's the opposite of night? Is it not day? Is it not day? And then it says in the daytime. I'm looking at the Blue Letter Bible for day, for the context that day is used in John 11 and 9. And then look what it says. One stumbles at night, as the Messiah was just saying in John 11 and 9. Look, it doesn't get any clearer. The Strong Hebrew says the time space between dawn and dark. Are you looking at this? And so this is what he was saying. Okay, this is what he was saying. He was just saying that there's 12 hours in the day, that is daylight for 12 hours. That's all he was saying. Is it not 12 hours in the daytime, in the daylight? And so to put the nail in the coffin on this 12-hour Sabbath to prove that it does not line up with Scripture or the structure of what was ordained as constituting the day per Genesis 1, per our Messiah, per Josephus, per all the scriptures and precepts that I've read. I want to read some precepts. Let's go to see if the prophets and those before us in the Bible kept a 12-hour Sabbath. When did the day begin for them to keep the Sabbath? Did they say that it began in the morning? Go to Nehemiah. This is so clear. Nehemiah 13, verses 15 through 21. Nehemiah 13, verses 15 through 21. In those days, I saw in Judah one treading wine presses on the Sabbath and bringing in sheaves and loading donkeys, and also wine, grapes, and figs, and all burdens, which they brought into Jerusalem on the Sabbath day. So in those days, meaning day as in not a 12-hour day, not talking about, Nehemiah's talking about not daylight when he says in those days. He wasn't talking about a 24-hour day, but he was talking about a specific time. He says during those times, just like as in the days of Noah, he said, I saw in Judah one treading wine presses on the Sabbath. He said he saw them bringing in seed. They was loading donkey wine. He said all kinds of burdens which they brought into Jerusalem when? On the Sabbath day. So he said he testified against them all that on that day to sow food. So he testified against them. Everybody who was bringing in food, selling food, doing work on the Sabbath, he said he testified against them. During this time, he said, men of Tyre, I'm in verse 16, Nehemiah 13 and 16. He says, men of Tyre also lived in it, who brought fish and all wares and were selling on the Sabbath to the sons of Judah, even in Jerusalem. He said, and I contended with the nobles of Judah and said to them, what is this evil thing that you do, defiling the Sabbath day? He said, so he's like, what is this evil thing that you're doing? Defiling the Sabbath day. He said, did not our fathers do this? And did not our Yah bring all this evil on us and on this city? He said, yeah, you are adding more wrath on Israel by defiling the Sabbath. He said, look, didn't you learn from our fathers? And what happened to them? And he said, now you just bringing on more wrath. You making Yah even more angry by continuing to do this. And so it says, and it happened when the gates of Jerusalem began to be shaded as the sun was setting. Are you looking at this? When the sun was setting, they were in Jerusalem, and it was getting ready to be shaded, meaning it was getting dark as the sun was setting. Just look at this. Look at verse 19. Just before the Sabbath began. Now, how can you sit here and say that the Sabbath began in the morning when it's daylight, from morning to evening, when clearly in Nehemiah we see that this is not a feast day. This is a regular weekly Sabbath, the seventh day. We see that he's in Jerusalem. The sun is getting ready to go down. It's getting darker. And it said this is just before the Sabbath began. So the sun is setting. If the sun is setting, doesn't the sun set when it's getting ready to be evening? I didn't know that the sun set when it was in the morning. I thought the sun rise when it's the morning. It says that the sun is setting. That means it's going down. That means that the moon, the lesser light, that rules the night or the evening, as per Genesis 1, is getting ready to rule the night. So where are they getting this 12-hour morning from evening or morning to morning Sabbath? Where are they getting this stuff? Because it's not lining up nowhere in Scripture. I'm waiting for it to come, and it hasn't come yet. There are people who have put out videos. And I saw one that was so crafty, he almost convinced me. But if I hadn't had the set-apart spirit. And I prayed to Yah to give me understanding and wisdom so that I can come before you and teach this scripture and shut it all the way down. For someone that is new, they would have believed it. But this person did not provide any context in any of the scriptures that they use in this video. Okay? He says, but just before the sun was shading, verse 19, just before the Sabbath began, so it was getting dark and the Sabbath was getting ready to begin. And Nehemiah said, I commanded that the gates be shut down and commanded that they should not be open until after the Sabbath. And I stationed some of my servants at the gate so that there should be no merchandise brought on the Sabbath day, so that nobody will be able to, he put guards at the gate so that nobody would go and try to bring something in on the Sabbath day to sell it. So what are the merchants doing? Look at verse 20. And the merchants and the sellers of all the wares stayed the night outside Jerusalem. Are you looking at this? Did they say they stayed the morning outside Jerusalem? No, it says they stayed the night. They was out there all night. Why? Because the Sabbath began. It tells you that the sun was set just before it began in verse 19. And it tells you in verse 20 that they stayed the night. They were waiting all night, all evening, until the Sabbath was over. Then what did Nehemiah do? Because this made him really angry that they would disrespect the Sabbath this way. Then he says, I testified against them and said to them, why are you staying around the wall? He said, if you do it again, he said, I'm going to put my hands on you. He was ready to fight them. Are you seeing this? He was ready to fight them because they were being disrespectful. Couldn't even wait, like, get out of here, go home. And he says, from that time on, they did not come on the Sabbath. So Nehemiah took a stand. He took a stand. He guarded and protected the Sabbath day, and we are supposed to do the same thing. I don't see this. I see people making excuses for Israel. You beating the Christians over here about Sunday, but you're not honoring Yah on his set-apart day. I don't want to hear any more from you guys. Those of you who are doing this, if you're working on the Sabbath, don't go and beat up the Christians about keeping Sunday, about keeping holidays and birthdays, and eating pork, shrimp, crab, and lobster, and you on the Sabbath working. You have no right to be witnessing to anybody because you're getting ready to be cut off. You can't go throw glass a brick and you live in a glass house. He says, judge not, lest you be judged. If you're doing the same thing that somebody else is, then don't talk about them and you doing the same thing. You are teaching Torah, you proud and you boasting of the Torah. He said, but you breaking the Torah, and he says, you make my name blaspheme before the heathens. Shame on you if you working on the Sabbath and you breaking the Sabbath and you going around here beating Christians up and you doing the same thing they doing. And so we see that in Nehemiah chapter 13, verses 15 through 21, as we just read. These verses clearly show us that even the transgressors knew when the Sabbath was. Even the transgressors knew. They knew when the Sabbath was. And it also shows us that we were to do no buying or selling or anything. None of that was to take place on the Sabbath day. Okay? So today, We have many preachers selling all their false doctrine in the temple. They I've seen some of them Sabbath churches. Okay, they selling their CDs, their DVDs, their books, their materials. See, I used to think that like when I saw the people in the Christian church, but I'm not getting mad at them about that doing it. You know why? Because they're not keeping a real Sabbath anyway. Sunday is not the Sabbath day. They free to keep selling all their false doctrine because that's not the Sabbath day. They're going to be in violation of the law because they are teaching things that are not true. They are selling things that are lies. Okay, but if you have a congregation that worships and gathers on the Sabbath and they're selling CDs and books and materials on the Sabbath day, this is a direct violation of the commandment. I don't care what kind of spin you try to put on it. You're selling yourself. You're not selling Yah. You can wait until the sun go down and you can tell them where they can purchase whatever it is that they're purchasing. I don't see anywhere in Scripture where he says you can no buying or selling unless you're selling something that's talking about the word. And so remember what we read earlier in Deuteronomy 24 when we read verses 9 through 15 where he says that if a person is poor, remember, he says that you shall not hold whatever it was that you owe them until the morning. Why did he say that? He said that because of what? Because that's the next day. That's if not the next day, but if it's the Sabbath, let's say it's the Sabbath, and they don't have any money and no other way to purchase food, or they need to pay a bill. If it just so happens that the day they're supposed to get paid and the next day fall, if it's a Friday, because some people do get paid, most people get paid on Friday, he knows that that's going to cause them to break the Sabbath. Let's say you get paid on a Thursday. The law still states that whatever day they're supposed to get paid on, you pay them that same day. If I get paid on a Thursday, don't come telling me I'll pay you on Friday. No, you in violation. By Thursday night, before that next day begins, I better have my check, period. Let's go to Luke 23. Now we're going to deal with when Yeshua was crucified and when Mary and Mary Magdalene came to see about him, to anoint him. When did they come? Go to Luke 23. We're going to go to verse 52 through 56. Luke 23, verses 52 through 56. Luke 23:52. Coming near to Pilate, this one asked for the body of Yeshua, and he took it down and wrapped it in a shroud of linen and laid it in a hewn tomb, which no man had yet been placed. And the day was setting. Look at that. And the day was setting. And the Sabbath was approaching. So the day was setting. That means that it was beginning to get dark. Now, let me say this. This was not a regular Sabbath. Yeshua died on Passover. Okay? This was approaching Passover. He died on a Wednesday. So these were high Sabbaths. These are not regular Sabbaths. These were high holy Sabbaths. But because your pastor teaches that the law is done away with, that's why y'all think that he died. He died on a Friday and rose on a Sunday. That's not what happened. He died on a Wednesday in the middle of the week, per Daniel 9:26 and 27. And so it says that Luke 23, verse 54, the day was setting and the Sabbath was approaching. Passover was approaching. It says, and having followed also the women who were accompanying him out of Galilee, watching the tomb, and his body was placed. Well, this was after, when he was killed, when the Messiah was killed, because this is after. They asked for the body. This is after. So let me correct myself. But everything that I said was true. But here in Luke 23, this was after he died. This was a weekly Sabbath, but it's a weekly Sabbath that also encompassed unleavened bread as well, because he died on Passover, okay, and then he was buried on unleavened bread. It went right from the 14th of the first month was Passover, and then the 15th, which at evening when the sun go down, it was unleavened bread. He was buried on unleavened bread, and he rose at the end of the Sabbath day, which was first fruit. Okay, the first Sabbath following unleavened bread is the first fruits, and you will count 50 Sabbaths from there. Then you will get Pentecost. Penti means 50. Okay, and so Mary and Mary Magdalene, because there were two Sabbaths that was happening at this time when they went to view the body, and so it says the sun was setting and the Sabbath was approaching. I'm in Luke 23:54. Okay, and so that means that it was evening. Okay, and the Sabbath was approaching, and it says, and having following the women who were accompanying him out of Galilee, they watched the tomb and how his body was placed, and returning, they placed spices, and indeed, they rested on the Sabbath day. So this is this is after he was killed or crucified, okay, and this was prior to him being raised from the dead. They wanted to make sure that his body was taken down off of the tree, because the scriptures tell you, curses anyone that is still hanging on the tree. They wanted to make sure that his body was placed, and they went to prepare the body and anoint it. Like we get embalmed when we die, they don't do that. They prepared it with perfumes and spices, and then they said they rested. So they made sure that Yeshua was put away correctly. And because they saw that the sun was setting, meaning it was getting evening, it was getting dark, and they knew that it says in verse 54 that the Sabbath was coming. So they made sure that he was taken care of and that his body was put in the tomb before the Sabbath. They made sure that was done. And then what does it say in verse 55? It says they rested on the Sabbath according to the commandments. So even they didn't even break the Sabbath. They kept the commandment. Why were they rushing to make sure everything was okay when they said that the sun was setting, meaning the sun was going down, the daylight was setting, the daylight was getting ready to disappear? That means it's getting dark. Why? We know that because it says the Sabbath was approaching. So again, where is this 12-hour stuff coming from that it begins in the morning? Why is it? This is nowhere in Scripture. Even those who walk with Yeshua, at the same time, they honoring the Sabbath when the sun going down. Look, so this is prior to him being raised from the dead. So this was unleavened bread. They're like, let us hurry up and get back. Now, go to verse 24. Now you're getting ready to see, because this was Passover, heading towards unleavened bread. They saying, look, it's getting ready to get dark. Yeshua died in the 9th hour. When you look at Matthew 27, verse 46, the 11th hour is 3 p.m. Okay? So there, and what you were looking at in Luke 23 is them going to Pilate. They want to make sure that they have his body taken down because they didn't want his body hanging on a tree. They wanted to make sure they anointed him, and that they did all of that before the sun went down, which was unleavened bread. Okay, which was a Sabbath. That's the Sabbath that it was. It was not the weekly Sabbath. He died at the 9th hour, which is 3 p.m. Okay, and as it was getting towards the evening, they wanted to make sure everything was okay. And then after he was buried on unleavened bread, when the sun went down, they said they were resting. Now look at Luke 24, verses 1 through 3. It says, and the first of the Sabbaths. Look at it. It says Sabbath, plural. This is unleavened bread, not the weekly Sabbath. Okay, at dawn, while still dark, they came on the tomb and carrying spices, which they prepared, and some were with him, and they found the stone having been rolled away from the tomb. And going in, they could not find the body of Yeshua. Why couldn't they find the body? Because he was already risen. He had already risen. The first Sabbath, it says the first of the Sabbaths. What Sabbath? Pentecost is coming up now. He died on Passover. He was buried on unleavened bread. okay? Once the sun went down, he died, and on a Wednesday, 3 days and 3 nights, 3 whole days, not 12 hours, 3 whole days and 3 whole nights. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, he died on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. He rose at the end of the Sabbath. Pentecost happens the first Saturday following the unleavened bread. And so unleavened bread, you are to have get clean all the leaven out of your house for 7 days. But that Saturday during unleavened bread, that right after that Sabbath is when you first start counting 50 Sabbaths to get to Pentecost. That's a whole nother lesson. I'm not getting ready to go into that, but I just want to explain to you what Sabbaths they're talking about here. And Matthew 20, go to Matthew 28. Because when they got there, it says that he had risen. He rose at the end. He rose at the end of the Sabbath, which was on a Saturday at the end. And that's why it says it was dawning towards the first day of the week. Dawning, as it began to dawn, it was heading that way, but it wasn't there yet. He did not rise on a Sunday. He rose at the end of a Saturday, the Sabbath day, at the end of the Sabbath, as it was heading towards the first day of the week. Look at Matthew 28, verses 1 and 2. It says, but after the Sabbath, what Sabbath? It's talking about unleavened bread and the weekly Sabbath, and at the dawning and the first of the Sabbath, because now it's Pentecost. Now he rose from the dead on Pentecost. Are you looking at this? He rose from the dead. That's in Pentecost, and this is during the time where he offered first fruits. The first fruit that were in the Messiah, those who died in the Messiah prior to him coming and dying on the tree, those were the first fruits that he offered up to our Abba Yah. Okay, that's another. I talked about this before. This is a refresher, but that's not what this lesson is about. So I'm probably going to go a little bit more into this with next week's lesson, but I don't want to get off track because this is not about the feast. Okay, but it says, but after the Sabbath, okay, because these were the feasts, and after he rose at the end of the weekly Sabbath, which is then you start counting Pentecost, okay, start counting 50 Sabbaths from there. At the end of the 50 Sabbaths is first fruits. He's offering up to our Abba Yah. He says, at the dawn until the first of the Sabbaths, okay, Miriam and Mary Magdalene and other came to look upon the grave, and behold, he wasn't there. Look at Mark 15 quickly. Mark 15, verses 42 and 43. And it becoming late afternoon, okay, it's getting late. Already since it was the preparation, that is the day before the Sabbath, okay, of unleavened bread, Joseph and of Armenia came, an honorable counselor who himself was also waiting for the kingdom of Yah. Okay, we keep saying this over and over and over, that everywhere, all the scripture we just read as it pertains to our Messiah, where they were keeping the feast and they were keeping the Sabbath. I've already told you per Leviticus 23. The Sabbath is a statute, and so are his feast days. And he says you will keep them from evening to evening. That's why in all the scriptures we read, I wasn't trying to get off into the feast days, but I was just trying to explain it. All of them, they keep mentioning the dawning. The dawning was getting ready to come, meaning it was evening and the first day was coming, or it's late afternoon, or it's getting dark, or they came right. It's all of them saying the same thing. It's mentioning the evening as the day that we determine when the day begins and ends, the evening. According to the Blue Letter Bible, for evening, it says from 6 o'clock p.m. to the beginning of the night. Are you seeing this? Between, it says late, L-A-T-E, late. I'm reading Blue Letter Bible for evening. It says between, from 6 o'clock p.m. to the beginning of the night, and then it says late. And then it says between the two evenings, from evening to evening. Are you looking at this? Mark 16, 1 through 9. Mark 16, 1 through 9, it says, and the Sabbath having passed, Miriam Magdalene and Miriam, the mother of Jacob and Salome, brought spices, so that coming they might anoint him. This is Yeshua. And at the early morning on the first of the week, they came to the cemetery as the sun was rising. See, at the end of the Sabbath, the sun is starting to rise now, going into the next day. They all waited. Are you looking at this? They all waited. That's all I'm going to read for that. Go down to verse 9. Go to verse 8. So they know that he's not there. And going out quickly, they fled from the tomb. And trembling and amazement took hold of them. And they told no one, not a thing, for they were afraid. And having risen, and now early on the first of the Sabbath, he appeared to Miriam Magdalene, from whom he had cast out 7 demons. So it's having risen now early on the first of the Sabbath. He rose at the first of the Sabbath. He rose at the end of the first Sabbath. And so to understand what is going on in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, again, during this time, just preceding and following the crucifixion of our Messiah, you need to have a thorough understanding of the spring feast. Quickly, Passover is on the 14th day of the first month. Then we have unleavened bread at evening on the 15th day. Passover, unleavened bread is for 7 days, where you clean out all the leaven or any leaven derivatives out of your home. However, within that 7 days will come a weekly Sabbath. Following the weekly Sabbath, that first Sabbath, the first day following the weekly Sabbath of unleavened bread is Pentecost, and you count 50 Sabbaths from that first Sabbath following unleavened bread, and then at the end of the 50 is first fruits. This is what he offered to Yah, Yeshua, and so Yeshua was crucified on Passover, which is symbolic of the sacrifice of our Messiah. He was buried on unleavened bread. He resurrected at the end of the Sabbath on first fruits, counted 50 Sabbaths to Pentecost. On Pentecost is when we receive the Ruach HaKodesh on Pentecost. That's when you received it. Remember in Acts chapter 2, they received the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit or the set-apart Spirit of Yah, on Pentecost in Acts chapter 2. Okay? And so let's go to some of the scriptures that some are using to justify keeping a 12-hour Sabbath, because I want to wrap this up. Some of the scriptures that they use, one of them is Exodus 16. These are the ones that I saw in the videos, and they're weak because it doesn't. He's ignoring everything else that I presented to you, and he's just going here. Exodus 16 and 23, and he said to them, that is what Yah said. Tomorrow is a rest, a holy Sabbath to you. What you will bake, bake, and what you will boil, and lay up for yourselves all that is left over to keep until the morning. The person in the video said, notice that tomorrow wasn't considered the evening of the previous day. He said, notice that, and I'm writing quote unquote what he wrote, notice that tomorrow wasn't considered the evening of the previous day. Okay. Tomorrow, pretty much in this scripture, what it's saying is that tomorrow meant the morning or when the sun rose. Well, let's go to the Blue Letter Bible to see if that's true. Okay. There's some who are really good. I'm telling you, they're good at twisting the scripture. They good at twisting it to their own destruction. And if you don't have the Ruach, you're going to be fooled by this, because when you look at it, he said, well, notice how it says in Exodus that Yah said tomorrow is a rest, okay, and that bake whatever you going to bake, because tomorrow. He was just talking about in the morning, when the sun rose, when the sun rises. Look at Blue Letter Bible. Blue Letter Bible for tomorrow, it says in the future or hereafter. All it means is in the future, because the Sabbath is coming. In the future or hereafter. Strong Hebrews 4:2-7-9 says, in the time to come, Meaning his Sabbath will be coming. Whatever you're going to bake, bake. Whatever you're going to broil, broil. But tomorrow is a rest, a Sabbath day to Yah. That's the reason why before the sun goes down, you make sure that you've done all that you've done so that when tomorrow, meaning the daylight, comes, hello, you will have everything you need. You will be prepared. You know, this is just, I almost don't even want to read this to even try to confuse anybody. When you go back to Exodus 16, go down to verse 18. It says, and they measured with an omer, and one gathering much did not have too much, and the one gathering little did not have any need. Each one gathered according to the mouth of his eating. And Moses said to them, do not let anyone leave from it until the morning. And they did not listen to Moses, and some left from it in the morning, and it became rotten with maggots and stunk. When I looked at the Blue Letter Bible for tomorrow, because he's saying notice that they didn't say tomorrow was the evening before. Tomorrow, according to the Blue Letter Bible, says in the time to come. It says in the future. Okay, in the future. So they were able, as I said earlier, they were able to enjoy what they prepared for the Sabbath on the day before because Yah has sustained them, just as he did with the children of Israel, where it says that their clothes didn't wear out, their shoes didn't wear out. When they were in the wilderness for the 40 years, their clothes or their shoes didn't wear out. But he provided. When I read the Nehemiah 9 in the beginning of this teaching, Nehemiah testified to the fact that they were sustained, that their clothes and their shoes did not wear out. Okay? But what people do not realize is this. Yah, during this time, he was teaching the Israelites one principal lesson, a lesson that we even still today do not get. Yah was teaching them that he and he alone is the one that sustains them. Okay? He was teaching them that it is he who supplies their daily bread. When you read Exodus chapter 16, and when he was showing them, look, I'm going to provide for you, gather twice the amount, and it's not going to stink. It's not going to be maggots in it. It's not going to spoil. But, and it didn't. But on the days when they tried to go out, what happened? It did. Under normal circumstances, if you leave your food out, it's gonna be ruined. I can't tell you how many times I had food and I accidentally thought I put something in the refrigerator, and I come to find out I didn't, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And I really wanted to eat it, but you know why I didn't eat it? Because I knew that this required refrigeration. Okay, I knew that if I eat it, I'm going to get sick. This thing has spoiled because it sat out all night to the morning. Even though I could have prepared some food, there's food that we bought that must be refrigerated. And if I would have left it out until the morning, this is still the Sabbath. When it's talking about I left it out to the morning, it's not talking about the next day. It's talking about the daylight. If I left it out all night, I wouldn't have been able to eat anything this morning, meaning during the daytime of the Sabbath. I wouldn't have been able to eat it. That's all that he is saying. People twist the scriptures to their own destruction because many of you don't want to work. You want to be able to party and do whatever you want to do on Friday night. You're trying to use the 12-hour Sabbath so you can still keep doing your foolishness. But Yah is not falling for this. He's not falling for it. Nowhere in Scripture do you see this. Yah was showing Israel in Exodus 16 that he is the one that supplied their needs. He sustained their food during those 2 days, and it didn't stink. They didn't have no refrigerator when they was in the wilderness. Yah sustained them for those 2 days. But when they tried to go on the seventh day, what happened? It said that it stunk. And then he called them hard-headed because they didn't listen. He told them that don't go out there because you ain't going to find none on that day. He is the one that supplies our daily bread. They didn't have no refrigerator. Those 2 days, Just like he did when they was in the wilderness, their clothes didn't wear out. He sustained their food for 2 days, but he said, I'm going to test them to see if they're going to obey me. For those 2 days, that food was sustained. It didn't rot. Maggots didn't get in it. It didn't stink. But when they tried to go out on the day that he told them not to, what happened? It rotted and it stunk. Read Exodus 16. Read it. Read it for yourself. And so the lesson, he's saying, look, I supply your daily bread. I do that. What did he say in Matthew 6? Our Father who art in heaven, set apart is your name, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Give us this our daily bread. He supplied them for those 2 days. Okay? But when they tried to go out on the Sabbath, it wasn't supplied. And so Yah was showing them again in Exodus 16 through 13 through 21 that when they left anything over until the morning that was not the Sabbath, it was not going to be sustained. Okay? When it was the Sabbath, he showed them his sustaining powers. I will sustain your food on these days. You don't have to go out on the Sabbath. I'm going to sustain you. I'm going to make sure that over into the next morning, meaning the daylight, that you got enough food for both days, for Friday and Saturday, for my 7th day, for the 6th day and the 7th day. Don't go out the morning of on the Sabbath looking for it because you're not going to find it. But let you leave your food out regularly overnight. It's going to be ruined. That's why I say, and I say this to my mom sometimes, stop eating food that's been left over. He said, don't eat it that's been left over into the morning. Eat whatever you're going to eat. But when the Sabbath comes, he sustained it. Are you guys getting what I'm saying? And so when they left anything over into the next morning, and it wasn't the Sabbath day, the food rotted. But when it was the Sabbath day, he made sure that he sustained them for those 2 days. He was showing them his power. He's showing you, I supply your daily bread. You don't need to go out and look for anything. Normally, it would have rotted and spoiled for those 2 days if they left it over. They were able to leave. Read the whole thing of Exodus when start reading at 16. You will see the differences between the two. When it wasn't the Sabbath and he says don't leave it over, it rotted and stunk and they didn't listen. But when it was the Sabbath, Yah showed, I'm going to sustain you. You ain't got to worry about it. It ain't going to rot this time. I got you. And so let's go to, I want to read a couple more scriptures that they use. And I'm just going to show you. You can just listen. 1 Samuel 19 and 11. They used this one. This was one I saw in the video, 1 Samuel 19:11, where it says Saul sent messengers to David's house to watch him and to kill him in the morning. And his wife, Michal, told David, saying, if you do not escape with your life tonight, tomorrow you will be killed. So they say, see, notice they said tonight and tomorrow. That was 2 different days. No. When you look this up in the Blue Letter Bible, all it is saying, it says, as defined by Genesis 1, evening and morning. This is exactly what the Blue Letter Bible says for this. In 1 Samuel 19 and 11, and again, when you read Leviticus 7 and 15, where it says, as the flesh of the sacrifice of thanksgiving peace offerings, it shall be eaten in the day, meaning some of your Bibles may say it should be eaten on the same day that you offer it. Do not leave any of it in the morning. Why? Because it's going to stink, because it's going to spoil. Whatever you offer, you need to eat it in that same day. Don't leave it over until the overnight, until the morning, meaning until the daylight. They say, well, the guy who was doing the video says, notice, is showing a difference between tonight and tomorrow, meaning it's 2 different. Tomorrow is a different day. No, when you see tomorrow, that just means daylight or the break of day, when it is light outside. It's light outside now, but it's still the Sabbath day. It's still the 7th day, all the way until it get dark tonight. Do you understand what I'm saying? When I look this up in this proper context, for same day, it says as defined by evening and morning, in Genesis 1. This is exactly what it says. As laid out in the structure, the evening and the morning is the first day, is the second day, is the third day. Evening and morning, he tell you from the beginning when the day began. 12 hours in the evening at night and 12 hours in the morning. That makes a day. That's evening to evening. We're not talking about the beginning of the morning, 12 hours at the end of that 12 hour for the morning. Now we're coming into evening again. Until the morning, according to the Blue Letter Bible, simply means dawn or break of day, a.k.a. daylight. When you look at Leviticus 7 and 15, it says, as to the flesh of the sacrifice of the thanksgiving peace offering, it shall be eaten in the same day of his offering. He shall not leave any of it until morning. That just when Blue Letter Bible said, eat it the same day, within that 24-hour period, as defined evening and morning in Genesis 1. So if I cook some chicken, if I made chicken, okay, I'm going to eat that chicken the same day I prepared it. I'm not going to leave it out until the morning, until it's daylight, and then wonder why I'm throwing up. Because you leaving food out, it's going to spoil. It's just meaning don't leave it until the daylight, until the second part of the 24-hour cycle. Okay, remember, 12 hours in the evening, 12 hours in the morning. The evening and the morning is a 24-hour cycle. Okay? That presents a health issue. You might not die, but you might get sick if you eat something that's been left out and it's supposed to be refrigerated. And this is why there are some foods, again, that cannot be left out until the morning. And that's why Yah himself even know that. That's why he say don't leave it out in the morning. If you sacrifice something, it's meat, it's flesh, you can't leave that out. You got to put meat in the refrigerator. Otherwise, if you leave it in the morning, meaning until the daytime or when it's daylight, doesn't mean it's the next day. It just means daylight. Learn how to study in the proper context. I'm like upset with this 12-hour doctrine. This is weak. I need a challenge. This is straight foolishness that anybody believe this. I can't believe anybody believe. Let's go to Jonah 4. Jonah 4. But Yah appointed a worm at the rising of the dawn of the next day, and it struck the plant and dried up. Now, they use this one. He appointed a worm at the rising of the dawn of the next day, meaning the sun, okay, of the next day, and it struck the plant and dried up. Now, to understand verse 7, we need to read the preceding verses in Jonah chapter 4. Now, during this time, Jonah is angry that Yah is having repentance on Nineveh. He's upset. Now, I find this quite strange that Jonah is upset that Yah is repenting, his judgment on Nineveh, but they repented. Okay, they repented. So Yah has changed his mind about what he was going to do to Nineveh, and surprisingly, Jonah is upset about that. He's sulking, and he wants to die. Okay, and so look at verse 5, Jonah 4 and 5. And Jonah went out from the city and sat on the east of the city, and he made there a sukkah for himself and sat under it in the shade. So he's sitting in the shade. So this means it's sun, okay? It is during the daytime. It is sunny. It's hot. He said until when he could see what was happening in the city. Clearly this is the day so that he can see what's going on. Just like Yeshua said, are there not 12 hours in the daylight? If you walk around at night, you're going to stumble because you can't see what's going on. Look, he's trying to see what's going on. So he's in the shade. It's hot. And Yah, Most High, appointed a plant, and it came up over Jonah to be shade over his head in order to deliver him from his misery. And so Jonah rejoiced over the plant with great joy. So he's rejoicing over the plant that Yah has put over him, his head, as shade. It says, but then Yah appointed a worm at the rising of the dawn of the next day. Dawn just means, according to Blue Letter Bible and thesaurus.com, daylight. Okay? The next time it became daylight again. Okay? Yah appointed a worm, and the worm ate the plant and the plant dried up. Okay? That's all this means. Is the next time that it's daylight. Okay? The next time that it was light. The next time the sun rose again, Jonah realized that a worm had come and eaten up the plant. Okay? And so all this is saying is that as it was the early morning or the daylight of the next day, because we know that evening and the morning was the next day, it's saying that Yah appointed a worm to destroy the plant. And this is why we read in verse 8, if you look at Jonah 4 and 8, it says, as the sun was rising, Yah appointed a scorching east wind, and the sun beat down on Jonah's head so that he grew faint and wished to die, saying, it is better for me to die than to live. Another version says, during the day, meaning as in the daytime, Yah sent a scorching wind, and the sun beat down on Jonah's head, making him feel faint. Jonah was ready to die, and he shouted, I wish I was dead. And so, if you continue to read the story, I'm not going into this because that's not what this is about. Jonah is sulking because Yah changed his mind. I guess he wanted him to destroy the people, but they repented. So Yah repented on what he was going to do to them. And so he was trying to, I guess, kill himself. He wanted to die. Yah caused a plant to grow over his head to give him shade. And then, Jonah took delight in this plant. And then Yah caused a worm to strike the plant and to destroy it. And when you continue reading that, you can read it at your own time. Jonah was upset because the worm ate the plant, and he's like, so you upset about a plant dying, and you had mercy on this plant. He said, but you're not concerned about the souls that were on their way to death. That as he said, as I showed mercy to you, you concerned about the plant, but you should be concerned about. He was basically teaching him, like, you should be showing mercy to life. This is a life. You upset about the plant that died. What about the people that were on their way to death? So you can read that on your own. It's a very good story. It teaches a lesson about showing mercy, because he was like, you want mercy for the plant. What about for these people? I'm showing these people mercy. Why are you upset about this? And he's like, yo, is your anger righteous? Like, you better check yourself. And so, again, Yah, our creator, he is the creator of the Sabbath. He determines when the Sabbath day begins, when it ends. He's the one that has determined that we are to observe his Sabbath from sunset to sunset, or from evening and evening, all throughout the Bible. All the scriptures that I have read, all of the parables, everything, okay? It's from Friday. His Sabbath is from Friday evening, or when the sun sets, or when the sun go down, to Saturday sundown, or Saturday evening, okay? From evening to evening, Friday evening to Saturday evening. And so in Matthew 3:15, Yeshua said that we must carry out all that Yah requires. We must do what he has required us to do. We cannot, no matter what you want to do, you have to do what he told us. That's why I went over all the examples, so that you can see how our people, how our forefathers, how the prophets, and even Yeshua himself, even we gave parables, shows you when the Sabbath begins. Where did we see anything was done in the morning? Even if you had a plague, even if you had an issue with blood, whatever the case was, you had to remain out of the camp, and you was going to be unclean until the evening. And it said this over and over. All throughout Torah, if you had a kind of sickness, issue with blood, anything running from you, you had to be out of the camp, and it was until evening, till the sun went down. Okay, some of them was, and I think leprosy was 7 days, if I'm not mistaken. And so we have to follow the scriptures, allow the scriptures to lead you into truth. If you don't see nobody in the scriptures doing that, why are you listening to somebody coming out? This 12-hour Sabbath is a heresy. This is something new. And this is what I'm going to reveal now is a revelation alert. Yah made a covenant. How many of you knew that Yah made a covenant with night and day? And that's how he cannot change the structure that it was laid out from evening, 12 hours in the evening, 12 hours in the morning. The evening and the morning was the first day. I'm going to read these quickly. I'm not going to, you don't have to go to them quickly because I'm going to be going quickly. But Jeremiah 33 and 20, just write it down and you can go back. Jeremiah 33 and 20 says, this is what the Most High says. If you can break my covenant with day and with night, I'm showing you, go to Jeremiah 33 and 20 because I want to show you this. Yah made a covenant with day and night. He made a covenant. It cannot be broken. So this 12-hour Sabbath is somebody who's trying to get you to break the covenant that Yah himself said he is not going to break. Jeremiah 33 and 20, this is what the Most High Yah says. If you can break my covenant with the day and with the night so that no one does not follow the other, he said, only then will I break my covenant with my servant David. So Yah is saying, look, he's letting you know I'm not going to break my covenant that I made with my servant David. So if my covenant that he said that I made with night and day, if that can be broken, that one don't follow the other, they follow evening and evening and the morning. They follow one another. And he said, if you can break that, let's see, nobody, not even Satan can break that. You can't break it. You can't break it. He says, then I will break my covenant with my servant David. That means it can't be broken. Genesis 8 and 22 says, while the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. It's not going to cease because he said that these would be for the lights, the two great light sources, the moon and the sun, would be for days, for times, for seasons. Are you understanding this? Jeremiah 33 and 25, thus says the Most High, if my covenant for day and night stands not, and the fixed patterns of heaven and earth, he says, then I have not established. He said, look, you can't change. He said, if you can change the covenant that I made with night and day, then that means that the earth and the heaven don't even exist. That means I didn't even establish them. Why? Because night and day was established in the beginning. And so we can't break the night and day time sequence that Yah has established in Genesis 1. This is part of his covenant. And the last time I checked, the sun and the moon did not run out of sync with each other. And so no one, not even, again, Satan, has the power to annul Yah's covenant that he has made with day and night, heaven and earth. He made covenant with heaven and earth. Remember, we did the lesson on the two witnesses, heaven and earth. Because Yah's word, his word is in his covenant. His word is true, and it does not change. He says, I'm the Most High Yah, I change not. This is why Scripture says, man thinks. They think to change times and laws. And people need to be very careful. Yes, you need to be careful because even his very own chosen people, Israel, even those who are speaking fluent Hebrew, those who are wearing tassels, those who are wearing beards, those who are calling themselves elders, teachers, mores, and calling themselves shepherds to his sheep, even they too are false prophets that are sent to deceive you. Again, the Sabbath day, guard it like none other. Guard it. Because your salvation and the sealing of your soul until the day of redemption hangs on it. Don't let nobody, like the guy said in the audio clip, look, if I'm wrong, I'm not going to hell because I kept and honored you 12 extra hours. But if you're wrong, oh boy, and you are, that's your soul to just go bye-bye. That's your soul. And you're going to have blood on your hands for everybody that believe your foolishness. And so just as Yah will renew the covenant with his chosen people, so will he renew the covenant with heaven and earth when it passes away. Go to Revelations 21 and read 1 and 2. Revelations 21, 1 and 2. He says, and I saw, and this is John, the Apostle John. He was the last one. He said, I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth passed away, and the sea no longer is. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from Yah, having been prepared as a bride, having been adorned for her husband. And so we see here that in Revelation 21, John said he saw a new heaven and a new earth, and the first heaven and the first earth passed away. Remember, I told you he made a covenant with day and night, and also heaven and earth. The first heaven and earth, John says, passed away. And now he has a new heaven and a new earth that's coming down. Remember what he said in Matthew 5:17 through 19. Remember this when you have someone coming to you with new doctrine. Matthew 5:17 and 19, he said, until heaven and earth pass, not one jot or one tittle shall in no way pass from the law until all be fulfilled. All has not been fulfilled. The last time I checked, we still got heaven and earth going on. So what he has said in Genesis chapter 1 and the structure in which his days begin and end, and what he has said about when his Sabbath and how we keep it from evening to evening, that has not changed. Yah will not break his covenant with his creatures. He will not. Look at John, go down to verse 22 and 23. John, this is Revelation 21, go down to verse 22. And John said, and I saw no sanctuary in it. Okay, for the master, Yah Almighty is his sanctuary and the Lamb. There will be no need of a sanctuary. We will be in their presence. We don't need to go to a church building to come into his presence. We're going to be in his presence. They're going to be there with us. He says, John says, and the city had no need of what? Look at this. The city had no need of a what? The two greater light sources that we saw in Genesis chapter 1, the moon and the sun. The sun, the greater light, and the moon, the lesser light. He said that the city had no need. When we get into the new kingdom, the new heaven and new earth that's coming down, the city had no need of the sun like it did in the beginning, and no need of the moon. Are you looking at this? The city had no need of the sun nor the moon that they might shine in it. We don't need the sun and the moon to give light to show us the way that we go. We don't need a pillar of a cloud by day or a pillar of cloud by fire to show us in the way to go, because our Lamb and our Master, Yah, they will be with us. They will be with us in the kingdom. We will be in their presence. It will be like it was supposed to be. Are you looking at this? It says, for the glory of Yah illuminates it, and its lamp is the Lamb. Are you looking at this? They will be with us. We will have no need for a sanctuary. We're not going to need no church building, because it says Yah Almighty is the sanctuary and the Lamb. The city will have no need of the sun or the moon, that they might shine in it. It says, for the glory of Yah illuminates it, and his lamp is the Lamb. And the nations of the one saved will walk in its light, and the kings of the earth bring their glory and honor in it. And his gate may not at all be shut by day, for no night will be. Look at this. There will be no night. Are you looking at this? There will be no night. When we get in the kingdom, it will be day continuously. Yom 3117 forever. Not day when you're looking at 25 day, 24 hours day, like the daytime. No, it's going to be daytime all day continuously, for no night will be there. And they will bring the glory and the honor of the nations in it. And so again, in the eternal kingdom, as it was in the garden, there will be no need for a sanctuary to draw near to Yah, because both Yah and Yeshua, the Son, will be present. In Genesis chapter 1 and 3, when Yah said, let there be light, the light was formed by Yeshua, right? Then he formed the sun, the moon, and the stars on the fourth day. But the scripture tells, the Torah says that the lamp, that his word is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. Okay? The new kingdom will follow the Torah. But the difference will be, we will be in the very presence, okay, of our Father Yah and our Master Yeshua. We will be in their presence continuously. It will be day. It will be that day continuously, daylight continuously, because night won't be there. There will be no night. There will be no night. And so this 12-hour, because I'm getting ready to bring Prina, this 12-hour Sabbath is a doctrine of devils. It's a doctrine of demons. It can be found nowhere in Scripture, and this is how you know that we are in a great falling away, that people are starting to believe this foolishness. That's why what did Timothy say? Guard what Yah has entrusted to you. Avoid pointless discussions and contradictions of what is falsely called knowledge. People who have this doctrine think they're slick with their crafty distorting of Scripture, trying to get people to walk away from keeping a 24-hour Sabbath. That's why he says, avoid profane talk, avoid foolish arguments, or from some people who what they think is called knowledge. He said it's falsely called knowledge in 1 Timothy 6:20. Verse 21 says, which some has professed, and in doing so have departed from the faith. Some people, who he says, have even lost their faith by believing this talk, by believing this foolishness. 1 Timothy 6:20, he says some have even lost their faith by even believing this. You departing from the faith. You are departing from the faith. Prina, I'm done. You can come in. You are departing from the faith by believing in this foolishness.
Toda Yah. Praise Yah. That was an awesome. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You shut it down with the definition, Yum. And, I mean, you took us to just speaking in using the word day in the context of what it is spoken of, and I think that's what really shut it down. But what really blew my mind was the scriptures that you use with Yah's covenant, that he will not destroy, do away with the covenant with night and day.
No.
Okay, that was the home run. That was the home run right there. I read those over and over again, but I just, you know how you read them, but you don't make the connect. I mean, you knocked that out of the ballpark, so you can't refute it. And just all the examples that you use, even with the Messiah. But one thing that people need to realize, that when he say the seventh day, a day, and you know literally that a day is 24 hours, how are you questioning when to keep it? It's a day.
Yeah, like what you doing the other 12 if it's only from morning to evening, so you getting ready. I don't know. This like I said, this is a new, I'm like, this is the second time I've heard of it. This was the second time it was brought to me. And I'm like, okay, I got to do a teaching on this. And because our people are just really going astray. And we got to, if you didn't learn anything today, you got to know how to study.
A day, he said the sixth day, and, the first day, then the second day, then the third day, then the fourth day. Sixth day, he finished all his work of the creations of heaven and earth. But on the seventh day, the whole day, he rested. So, I mean, but what blew it out was I'm just telling you, just proof of what set it up, was the definition day, and how the context of what you're reading, whether it's a year or an age or a specific time, or a season, it just, the context of where, what it's speaking of at that time is what that day means. And so that was like the icing, I mean, no, that was the start of the cake, put it like that. But the icing on the cake was the revelation at the end when you spoke of the covenant that Yah made with, night and day. And that he's not doing away with it. And then just to, to set it off some even more, when we get in the kingdom, those that make it, how, you know, when heaven and earth is no longer and a new heaven and earth come down, he's, you know, when he said it's no going to be no more light, I mean, you know, no more day. I mean, I'm sorry, no more night. The night is gone. It's going to be
Won't
day
even be
all
there.
the
I
time.
hadn't even paid attention to that, even though I read it a billion times.
I read that all the time, but that's what I'm saying. I'm like, wow, like, you know, but see, you was honing in on it, and so it really brought light to that, you know, and my favorite scripture that you read, you know, 5:17 through 19, Matthew 5:17, you know, just to, you know, the precept to that so that they can see that heaven and earth, you know, until heaven and earth pass away, his word is not going to pass away. And, you know, and how what John saw when he was able to see the coming of the new, you know, heaven and the new heaven and earth, you know, the coming of that, and how now Yah and Yeshua will be the light, and there is no need for night. So, I mean, it was just an awesome lesson. If, you know, if they didn't get it with the definition, I hopefully, with all the examples and all the scriptures and even how Yeshua, you know,
even in the parable, everything, when you supposed to get paid, like, don't make them wait. And when he said in the morning, just don't make them wait till the daytime. Like, if they getting paid on a Friday, and you make somebody wait, and this all I have we don't been there. Like, it's Friday, it's payday, we trying to get there to go buy or prepare whatever before the sun go down. If we didn't have that paycheck, or they didn't pay us on that day, we wouldn't be able to eat. Like, if to wait until the next morning, because he said don't make them wait until the morning, because they've been counting on this, what they're going to do now. You see what I'm saying? That he showed them in the wilderness. I supply your daily bread. I will make sure. On a regular day, he said, don't go out in the morning, meaning during the daytime, because you go and try to keep some of this, it's going to spoil. But on the Sabbath, it did not spoil. He was showing you, I supply your daily bread. Listen to what I'm saying. None of the scriptures, none, all of the scriptures from Torah, all the ones, examples from Yeshua, Josephus, was like, when I saw that, I'm like, wow, it's straight up like.
That one. I haven't read that one in Josephus, and I was like, wow, like when the blowing of the shofar to let them know. I mean, like, that. Well,
and it was from evening to evening that it was blown to let them know when to leave work and when they can return. I'm like, you know what? I could have stopped in. But I'm like, nope. I'm going all the way, and I'm going to lead the covenant one to the end. So, it
was awesome. And, you know, just all the examples that you use, I loved how you use them in the context, like with the feast days and seasons, you know, the Sabbath.
All the days of your life when he's talking about keeping your word. He's not talking about
covenant, you know.
He's not talking about day 12 hours.
It's not like I'm going to do it one Sabbath and then that's it. No, it's continual throughout your dwelling, you know. And so I just you know, loving how you just set it up so that you could see that definition, but you use scriptures to support all of the, you know, definitions, you know, what it means of day in the context of what it was spoken of. So it was awesome. Praise Yah.
Y'all did a thing on this, yes.
Well, that covenant, that rocked it. I ain't gonna even lie. I was shocked because I haven't. I must not been paying close attention to it, but I'm just saying, wow, he made covenant with day and night. Get out of here.
Yep, just like that's why heaven and earth, because they're the two witnesses, the other two witnesses.
Yes, he said it. You know, the earth, heaven and earth is always going to be a witness to you. Yeah, oh my goodness, it's just, it's truly awesome. You know, and once you really immerse yourself in his word, I mean, you get to
open it up.
The awesomeness that he has and the love that he has for his people. And it just goes to show you that if he's not going to break his covenant with the moon and the sun, He's not going to break the covenant that he made with Abraham.
Yes, that's what he said, and Jacob. Yes, we are that. We are part of that, and so start keeping His commandments so that you can be a part of the inheritance. So so that you can be sealed.
Yes.
On the day He come back to redeem you, because the Sabbath is part of that seal. You let somebody, like the guy said, you don't let somebody talk you into worshiping His Sabbath of 12 hours, like unbelievable. You let somebody talk you into that. Like, if you're wrong, you up the creek without a paddle. I'm not gonna be in hell because I kept 12 more hours. But you're wrong if you're wrong. Like, that's just, to me, that's came up with somebody who sat around and say, how can I find a loophole so I can keep working and clubbing or at the movies or eating on the Sabbath?
Because they want to keep with their flesh. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the scriptures that they use, it was weak. It does not, it don't, I'm like, how can you just ignore all of the scriptures that I just, like, presented? You know what I'm saying? How can you ignore that? And he kept talking about, well, that was just for the feast day. Okay, what about all the other ones?
Yeah.
All the other ones. What about Nehemiah? Yeah. What about what Josephus said? What about the example that even Yeshua used? Yeshua was following, even with the parable, he was following Torah. What was said about that?
Even with uncleanness, you know, like when you're unclean, when you're a leper, when you have leprosy, you know.
Everything was until the evening. You had something. Even Miriam, I believe she had to stay out because she had leprosy. She had to stay out for, I believe, 7 days out the camp. Then she was going to be unclean until the evening. Do you understand what I'm saying? Why wasn't it saying to the morning? Because it was from evening to evening. That's when the day began and ended. That's why the feast days, he said, you should keep them from evening to evening. When you look at the Blue Letter Bible for the same day, it said evening to evening as laid out in Genesis chapter 1. I mean, it's just like, you got to know how to study. Otherwise, if you don't learn how to study and rely on the Ruach, you're not going to understand it. It is no way I could have put this lesson together. I did not have all of this understanding. I prayed because I was getting stumped over that video that I saw. And it was seeming like he was making sense. But I know, I'm like, this is not right. And I know it's not because it doesn't line up. And I just was praying, Father, Yah, please help me to put this lesson together so I can teach your people. Please, I was praying before him, asking him to help me with this because I had been asked this question and I knew it was wrong. I couldn't find the lesson that I did. Only before, I don't know where is that. It may have been in a state of body. I'm like, shoot, we got something. Ain't no way I'm going to 162 and listen, try to find. I'm like, I'm going to have to do it because there's too many people keep asking me. So this is the second time, this is the second time this year this was brought up. And I'm like, let me put a teaching out here to shut this down all the way down. And if you keep a 12-hour Sabbath after listening to this lesson, you just want to be in hell in the lake.
You are rebellious.
Yeah, you're being rebellious.
And you are an idolater.
You are an idolater. Yes, you are an idolater. Well, I'm gonna so I can get off here. Just have you lead us out if you have it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so, people, just do not allow anybody to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Yes. Don't allow anybody to fool you out of your salvation. He said, Lord Yeshua said, don't let nobody take your crown. Okay? Satan is working through many people in Israel that's got a beard, that's speaking fluent Hebrew, that's Canaan and Shaloming and keeping feast days, and they leading you straight to hell.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm reading from 1 Chronicles 29, verse 10 through 13 and verse 18. And David blessed Yah before the eyes of all the congregation. And David said, blessed are you, O Yah, the power of Israel, our Father forever and ever. To you, O Yah, be the greatness and the power and the high esteem and the victory and the majesty, for all in the heavens and the earth belongs to you. O Yah, yours is the kingdom, and you lift up yourself to all as head. And the riches and the honor come before you, and you rule over all. And in your hand is power and might, and it is in your hand to make great and to give strength to all. And now our power, we are giving thanks to you and giving praise to your high esteemed name. O Yah, the power of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. Our fathers, keep this for the intent of the thoughts of the heart of your people and prepare their heart towards you. In Yeshua's name, so be it.
In Yeshua's name, so be it. So we pray, and when this lesson is recorded, please share this teaching with everyone you know, anybody who is confused on when a day, what constitutes a day, when the Sabbath begins and when it ends. Please make sure that they listen to this.
Shaitan, the most important thing, he said, remember it. That's the commandment.
Yes, yes. He said, remember. And you got somebody trying to tell you to keep half of it.
Yes.
Do you know? Forget about them other 12 hours.
All our time, not partial.
Yeah. Forget about them other 12 hours. It's just the morning to the evening. I'm like, you better wake up. And so with that being said, may Yah bless and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May he lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. So just listen to this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful song by Milka Norwood. Enjoy the rest of your Sabbath. Shabbat Shalom.
Freedom to worship and bow down to Yah. Free.